Chapter 578. Tang Tian gradually found the trick to it. Fighting with armies could not be forceful, but required constant changes in position, continuous pulling, continuous piecemeal attacks, and the worst thing to do was to clash head-on and be surrounded. He did not want to think about Master Meng Nan, but these three experts could be used. After a few days, Master Bing had already convinced Shi Sen. Master Bing's standard was definitely not ordinary. Master Bing gave him a few small suggestions for ichthyosaur transformation, all of which were on point. Shi Sen tasted it. After the modification, ichthyosaur transformation's power had increased by 20%. Jing Hao nodded his head. You guys rest for a while. So Shi Sen specially instructed his subordinates to not hold back. All of his subordinates were added to the sparring team. 10 minutes later, the three of them were brimming with energy, causing Shi Sen and the rest's faces to turn black. Seeing that, Crane said, "Let's rest for a while." 5 hours later, Sun Jing stared at him. "Don't be anxious. That is an order from above. I heard that the 22nd Army's mission was not completed, and in the end, the commander was suspended and the vice commander was executed." "Shi Sen," Crane said calmly, "you shut up. Their weakness is the moment after they unleash their techniques. Especially when they continuously unleash their techniques, their defense will have a short period of time. As long as their sword is fast enough, they can penetrate through their defense." Jing Hao said. They struggled to get up. One of his subordinates laughed. "Master, why are you so anxious? These fellows should know how powerful we are now." At this time, the three of them finally collapsed from exhaustion, and Shi Sen heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone sat on the ground to rest, and Shi Sen gasped for breath. "Your physical strength is truly strong." Shi Sen was shocked by Master Meng Nan's improvement. In just a few days, the number of sparring partners had already reached 25 people. His subordinates were all Underworld Continent's demonic mounts. They were the true elites, and no one was clearer than Shi Sen about their strength. Ling Su stared angrily. "Are you showing off?" Tang Tian was completely unaware that the Underworld Continent's demonic mounts under Shi Sen were swift and fierce existences. 25 Underworld Continent demonic mounts, even in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, was a force that could not be underestimated. Shi Sen didn't know how he managed to get up, but even though he wasn't tactful enough, he was extremely proud of himself. It was not only him, the Underworld Continent's demonic mounts under him were the same. All of them were arrogant people. How could they admit defeat? His subordinates were all shocked. "It can't be." Shi Sen, the strength of the three of them spoke for themselves, and if they could be absorbed into the army, they would be the best assistants. From Shi Sen's point of view, the reason why these experts were not willing to join the army was because they were too confident in their own strength. If they knew that their individual strength would never be able to contend against an army, they would definitely walk the path of an army. "Come," the three of them said in unison. But now, all of the Underworld Continent's demonic mounts were like mud. Shi Sen did not have any suspicions towards Master Meng Nan's background, other than the savages. He truly did not think that any other continent would have such a strong body. Shi Sen's effect was obvious. The three small units were linked together. He was in the center, controlling the three small units at the same time. He could do it with ease. Shi Sen, who was perspiring profusely, gasped for breath. "Your physical strength is too good." Bing quietly observed from the side, doing all sorts of analysis. He was also extremely curious about the Sacred Saint Galaxy Army's tactics. The first 3 days were spent in shock, and when the fourth day started, the situation started to change. Master Meng Nan continued to train with high intensity, causing Shi Sen to once again praise Master Meng Nan's beast-like physical strength. But what Shi Sen did not expect was that the three's tenacity and endurance had once again exceeded his expectations. A nightmare, just like that, had begun. For Master Meng Nan to have such outstanding military generals as support, his background was definitely not simple. Listening to them, Shi Sen started to perspire profusely, his hands and legs turning cold. He himself was extremely familiar with the formation, even more familiar than his own body. So the discussion of the three, in his heart, was like thunder, exploding his mind into a blank. Following that, Dian Yizan, oh no, Dian Yizan Crane, requested to be a sparring partner, which Shursen agreed to. Shursen, the more Sun Jing thought about it, the more afraid he became, his face becoming distorted. Don't tell me Shursen also heard the news? You want me to die? No way. All of you move, capture them. Whoever dares to resist, kill them on the spot. 200,000 people, we must definitely complete the mission. Again. The three of them said in unison. After a while, Jia Si, oh no, Cha Si's Ling Su, also ran over and requested to be a sparring partner, which Shursen agreed to. He started to feel tired. Shursen, but what made him feel inconceivable was that Master Meng Nan's techniques were extremely exquisite. Could it be that the savage continent's martial techniques had already developed to such a powerful stage? Because during the charge, the amount of energy that could be mobilized would reach a terrifying value. When the amount of energy reached a certain level, flaws and loopholes would no longer be important. Of course, Shursen agreed immediately. The reason why Jing Hao and the other two performed so badly previously was because they were too unfamiliar with the Sacred Saint Galaxy's tactics, and were unfamiliar with the high-energy environment of the Sacred Saint Galaxy. Following their familiarity with the army's tactics, and familiarity with the Sacred Saint Galaxy, they gradually found a way. Jing Hao, who had changed his name to Jian Wu, also hoped to participate in the sparring. The might of the army would reach its peak during the charge. Meng Nan, he truly lived up to his name. Ling Su stared at him angrily. Why don't you praise us for our stamina? They are powerful, but they don't seem to be able to take a beating. Their weakness is the points that can be attacked in an instant. When there are more than 96 of them, there will be flaws in their defense. As long as I release enough spears, their defense will collapse. Ling Su said. But in terms of overall evaluation, he was not optimistic. In this era where armies were the mainstream, Master Meng Nan's single-handedly fighting style was fated to not be successful. Thinking about it, if they needed Master Meng Nan to charge and break through the enemy lines, then they would be a failure. Furthermore, Master Meng Nan had Master Bing's support. Crane said calmly, I believe that you will not care about him anymore. Shursen's legs were already trembling, the members around him were all swaying left and right, all of their faces were pale white. Shursen no longer had the strength to lament about the physical strength of these beasts. And they were the fully armed underworld continent's demonic mounts. Although in Bing's eyes, the equipment could not allow Shursen and the rest to unleash their true fighting strength, but it was already equipment that Shursen did not even dare to dream of. Experts, they were definitely true experts, and the most powerful experts that Shursen had ever seen. But he had never thought that the nightmare was just beginning. 10 minutes later, seeing Ling Su jump up, Shursen's face changed. As expected, Jing Hao and Crane also stood up at the same time. Crane said apologetically, please ignore him. The three of them were once again suppressed to the point of being battered and exhausted. 10 minutes later, Ling Su stared angrily, are you showing off again? Tang Tian's performance was even more outstanding. He alone was able to restrict 25 underworld continents' demonic mounts. Of course, it was just restricting. If it was a head-on assault, Tang Tian was definitely not their opponent. As expected of the Sacred Saint Galaxy, they were truly powerful. I can only restrict 25 of them. Thinking about it, Tang Tian felt that there were still many areas that he could dig out, and that made him excited. Bing scratched his chin, looking at the exhausted Shursen and the rest. He was thinking if he should give them some endurance training. Again! The three of them shouted at the same time. They were all zero-energy bodies, and had outstanding recovery abilities. Ichthyosaur transformation was created by Shursen when he was young, and after fighting for 10 years, this battle tactic had been continuously improved, and ever since the last improvement 5 years ago, Shursen thought that the Ichthyosaur transformation had been perfected. The others looked at each other, seeing the fear in each other's eyes, and immediately ran towards the barracks. But after that, the three of them quickly displayed their extremely strong learning abilities. They improved at a godly speed. As the majority of the underworld continent's demonic mounts were occupied by Tang Tian, they had no choice, and Shursen personally went up. After 10 minutes, Ling Su jumped out, Jing Hao stood up, and Crane also stood up. Shursen had a deep impression of Master Jian Wu, the sword that he unleashed previously, although the energy undulation was not strong, but it contained the power of laws. That meant that Master Jian Wu had entered the next level, and was a true swordsman. Such an expert was hard to find even with 1,000 gold. The only pity was that he did not seem to understand battle formations. If not, he would definitely be the sharpest blade. Jing Hao nodded his head. Still all right. This Shursen is too slow. How many days has it been? Sun Jing said unhappily. In this period of time, Tang Tian's strength had improved extremely quickly. The enlightenment the last time was like opening a window. The fire scythe ghost claw had obtained a new life in his hands, and also gave him another important attack method. Tang Tian then remembered that he had many weird things on him, like the devil flame, or the blade seal. He had never seriously unearthed their might. After 5 hours, the three of them were exhausted once again. This time, Shursen and the other members were also extremely tired. Many of them sat on their butts, their entire bodies perspiring profusely. 20%, this was a difference of 2 levels, and allowed Shursen to recognize the difference between him and Master Bing. Shursen heaved a sigh of relief, and then saw the three of them huddled together, and the three of them started to discuss enthusiastically. The temporary difficulty did not make Tang Tian depressed, but instead made him excited. Such a challenge made him full of vigor. And Master Meng Nan was extremely proficient in using his own advantages, and had a beast-like intuition towards battles, and every time he watched, he would exclaim in admiration. Even he was unable to predict all of the inconceivable ideas. Just at that moment, Precious Bright City's Sun Jing also received an urgent order from the higher-ups. The three of their physical strength were not as outstanding as Master Meng Nan, but they were still relatively good. At the start, the three of them obviously did not have any experience on how to fight against armies. They were suppressed by Shursen's subordinates into a difficult situation, which made Shursen satisfied. Jing Hao nodded his head. Still all right. Their weakness is the undulation of their spirit. From a certain angle, we can disrupt their synchronization. As long as we can find the golden angle to cut in, their defensive line will be torn apart. Crane said. Chapter 579. The 32nd Army has a total of 1,500 men. This army is ranked at the bottom of the vast star continent, so their equipment is terrible. Before Sun Jing came, I was very strict with the daily tactics training, but after Sun Jing came, the people below listened to him, accompanied him to eat, drink and play. The discipline was very lax. Unique military general? Tang Tian was startled. The familiar term made him flabbergasted. You can't rise in command? Bing asked. To a military general, command was more important than individual bravery. 500 was truly too low. It could only lead a vanguard, and was unable to control an army. No matter how small an army was, it would still have 1,000 men. If the command could not rise, it meant that the military general's potential was not big. Yes, his unique is blade net. Shursen's face congealed. Not mentioning Master Meng Nan, just the underworld continent's demonic mounts led by Master Shursen was enough to wipe them all out. When he knew that Master Shursen was actually leading the underworld continent's demonic mounts, he almost peed in his pants. I can't rise. Shursen did not care. Maybe it has something to do with our training methods. The underworld continent has never produced a famous general. Commander, where are you? The Sun family is truly the Sun family. What idea? Bing was surprised and turned his face. Ah yeah, you specially came over. That's great. It saves me the trouble of finding Shursen and directly convict him when I return. Sun Jing said. That's a good plan. Shursen nodded his head. The difference in numbers between both parties was too great. If they did not borrow the defense of the Black Castle, it would not be easy to win. Be gentler. Don't kill them. Another officer chided. Their battle results were not much. There were only less than 8,000 people in the Precious Bright City, which was still far from their mission goal. They suddenly realized the mission this time was not so easy to complete, and the cruel punishment, caused them to feel a deep fear. They did not care about anything else, and captured the old, weak, young and disabled to make up the numbers. That's why Jie, you are the best. Sun Zheng laughed mischievously. Shi Yong's face changed. He had never heard of Sun Zheng's name before. How could he not have heard of Sun Jie, who was one of the 3 stars of the stars? The 8th Army was also one of the 3 most elite armies in the vast star continent. The Sun family had poured a lot of blood and sweat into this army. Regardless of equipment or the standard of the soldiers, they were far stronger than any ordinary army in the vast star continent. How many stupid things had this guy done? Stupidity had its own set of idiocy. Suddenly, Shi Yong heard the 2 people's discussion. Shi Yong was stunned. Old Shi too, are you a unique military general? Tang Tian asked curiously. Which continent has the most famous mechanic techniques? Bing suddenly asked. Blade web? What is that? Bing asked. He continued, Sun Zheng doesn't have much ability. Compared to his cousin, Sun Jie, he's far inferior. He's a good-for-nothing. But Sun Jie is very strong. He is a peerless general. More than 200 people were tied to the long chains. They were tied together like livestock. Shi Yong's eyes were cold, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. If these people knew that Shi Sin had already been subdued by Master Meng Nan, what expressions would they have? But the truly ferocious one was still Master Meng Nan. With his own strength, he defeated 51 underworld continents' demonic mounts. If this battle record were to spread, no one would believe it. Sun Jie laughed. No problem, if the numbers are not enough, I'll help you take down the summer continent. That's right. Master Sun Zheng's face is truly big. Even Master Sun Jie's 8th Army came to help with a conscripting mission. You don't know about this, but Master Sun Jie is Master's cousin, and the 2 families are very close. Only my members who are underworld continent's demonic mounts can use it, but its power is not bad. Shi Sin said proudly. It's over. He looked defeated. Hey, Uncle Bing, quickly tell us your battle plan. Tang Tian interrupted their conversation. Tang Tian raised both of his arms and shouted, Godlike old Shi, go, go, go. When Shi Sen was introducing the army, he was somewhat ashamed. As a commander, he was unable to control the army, and it was not something to be proud of. That's right, the strongest in the eastern region is the Gold Continent. Their mechanical techniques are unparalleled, and it is said that they have a history of over 30,000 years. Shi Sen looked at Sky Tiger. The mechanical giant had given him a deep impression. Very quickly, the 10 elites left the formation and flew towards the southwest direction. A group of people soared into the sky. Shi Sen's eyes burst with light. He laughed, revealing his yellow teeth. I only command 500 people, and my military rank is only a lieutenant, so it is hard for people to look down on me. But other than these brothers, no one else knows that I am a unique military general, and my unique is the demonic mounts. Wang Xuanxian's eyes turned red. He was extremely excited. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down, then bowed respectfully to Tang Tian. Xuanxian is willing to be your guide. My abilities are low, and might not be able to help young master much, but if young master has any errands for me, I will definitely not frown. Shi Sen's expression immediately froze. He turned his head and looked at Master Meng Nan in a daze, as though he was looking at a lunatic. Sun Jie was helpless. Master is truly angry this time. I heard that in the study he directly smashed a teacup on Master Ziqing's face, and when Master Ziqing came out, everyone jumped in fright. Whoever does not complete the mission this time would be knocking on the muzzle. I was afraid that something might happen to you, so I came to take a look. I don't know. Shi Sen shook his head. I have never seen it before, but he once set a record of killing 700 people with 120 people. This time, Sun Jie did not bring too many people with him. He only brought 500 elites. He stood in the clouds, looking down at the wolf-like soldiers, chasing the villagers away. His expression was carefree. Ah Jing, in the future, you better not be a military general. Just do some internal affairs or do some business. That way I won't have to worry. Bang. Demonic mounts? Tang Tian was even more confused. The blade net was understandable, but the demonic mounts was something he could not understand. Bing consoled Shursin, "You will get used to it in the future." Seeing that Shursin led the 45 underworld continent demonic mounts and left quietly, Tang Tian suddenly said, "Uncle Bing, I have an idea." Sun Jie smiled at Sun Zheng. "I reckon that someone heard the news and wants to run. Go, send a small team and take them down." The dark green ropes were called prison ropes and were specially used to tie up prisoners. They would be deeply embedded into the flesh of the captives, and its biggest use was to isolate the captives from the energy of the outside world. Be honest. And the other team went to look for Shur Sr. You think I want to? Compared to his brother, regardless of temperament or appearance, Sun Zheng was lacking. He waved his hand. "Anyway, after this year, I will have enough experience, and at that time, I will go to some planet to find a job and live a life of debauchery." Bing's poker face revealed a helpless smile. Who asked him to be a crazy young man? Bing regained his senses, his eyes regaining clarity. "Our plan is very simple. Old Shur and the rest will go and harass the various villages. The best would be to attract all the teams to the Black Castle, and we will fight them here." "The gold continent of the eastern region?" Bing muttered. Luckily, Bing had some confidence in the defense of the Black Castle. Under his continuous training, the villagers had improved very quickly. If they were to attack, they would definitely be defeated, but if they were to defend the castle, they would still have some ability to protect themselves. Tang Tian's gaze was sincere and calm. Bing realized that he was unable to refute. He muttered, "Then you guys must be fast." Bing stared at crazy Tang Tian's back. From a military general's point of view, Tang Tian's actions were very foolish. For a low-value target, to bear such a huge risk, it completely went against the principles of battle tactics. "I will go to Precious Bright City with Ling Su and the rest, and save everyone." Tang Tian explained, "Old Shur's actions require a certain amount of time. We can definitely rush back in time. If we are late and Shur Yong and the rest are transported away, it will be troublesome." An intense explosion sounded out from the southwest direction. A flash of fire entered his vision, causing his pupils to constrict. Captives who were unable to use energy were of no threat. Sun Jie did not wear armor. He wore a white gown. His figure was tall and slender. His appearance was elegant. He looked like a romantic scholar, without any killing intent. At such a young age, he was already in charge of an army. No matter where he went, he would always be dazzling. Shur Yong's heart was filled with regret, such an important news, and he actually did not manage to obtain it. Mechanical techniques? Shursin was startled. That is obviously the gold continent of the eastern region. It was the commander's hometown. There were many familiar things, causing Bing to think about the past. Suddenly, a scout reported, "Master, from the southwest direction, there are 5 people approaching us." "Don't worry, uncle." Tang Tian waved his hand without turning his head. He shouted, "We will be back very quickly." Shur Yong's back was in pain, blood spurting out. A whip mark was left on his back. Shur Yong did not make a sound, but hatred surfaced in his eyes. The dark green rope had deeply pierced into his flesh. He had completely lost his sense of energy. His body was empty, without any strength. He said it casually, his words filled with confidence. Bing nodded his head. He did not say anything. He was slightly distracted. He thought about the commander. The army was formed from nothing. All of them were once ordinary people, and the formation of the Southern Cross Army was created by the commander. "Yes," the adjutant replied. He volunteered to run back, just to observe the movements of these people. When the army made their move, he had already spread the news, and Master Meng Nen definitely received it. To prevent any unnecessary losses, he even allowed the Precious Bright Village Regiment to not resist. For a few fish that escape the net, their luck is truly bad. To actually bump into your troops, they truly deserve to die. Sun Jing laughed out loud. "A pity there are too few of them. If there were really 800 to 1,000 of them, then my mission would be much easier." Bing never thought that Tang Tian would bring up such a brazen idea. He had long noticed Wang Xian's worry. Shur Yong had sent people to deliver the news, and could foresee that the Precious Bright City situation was extremely bad. "It's good that you have such plans." Sun Jie laughed. Bing was equally surprised, but very quickly he revealed a look of understanding. This was the commander's hometown. Chapter 580. Stars exploded, countless spear auras shot out in all directions like raindrops. The members in the light shuttle were unable to react in time and were pierced full of holes. This unique method of advancing was named Spear Rush by Ling Su. Ling Su, who was previously brave and unparalleled, trembled and almost fell down. Although Xiao Bai was a sword-horn antelope, but its fighting bloodline had not been activated, and for it to reach the standards of its seniors, it required a large amount of fighting to feed it. Sun Jie was slightly regretful. He did not bring the vanguard battalion. His face sunk and spoke quickly. "Second squadron, stop them. Come on." Throughout the entire battle, Tang Tian and the rest did not stop at all and maintained their high speed. The captain in the light shuttle could not believe his own eyes. How is that possible? Crane noticed the troops in the distance and frowned. "Let's rush over." Only the yearning in his heart was the direction of his spear tip. He calculated, 60 m for one spear, 200 m would be 10 spears, 20 kilometers would be 100 spears. In the next moment, they appeared at the side of the squadron, and the two figures separated. "And you guys? Compared to Shursin, you guys are still lacking." The crazy young man was brooding and racked his brains. There was a sword named Drunk on Saint Blood. That was the difference between the sacred Saint Galaxy and Heaven's Road. The energy of Heaven's Road people were stored in their dantian, although they did not have as much energy as the people of the sacred Saint Galaxy, but through the purification of their meridians, they were much more stable and would rarely cause an explosion. But the people of the sacred Saint Galaxy were like bags of energy and could easily cause an explosion. The energy in their bodies went out of control. Die. In the blink of an eye, the distance between both parties was shortened by another 50 m. Behind the silver rainstorm, the reckless and crazy face was faintly discernible. Out of the few of them, Crane was the most relaxed. He originally walked the light and agile path, and after obtaining the demonic feather, he was like a tiger with wings, and even little fool could not catch up to him. The silver aura that filled the sky became simple and condensed into a cold aura. This cold aura was no longer like the silver rainstorm, but was round like a ball, with light auras revolving around it, like a star. The flames in Ling Su's orange eyes burned even more fiercely, and his expression became even crazier. If it was the first time he encountered such an attack, he would have been flustered. But after torturing Shursin for so many days, how could he not have improved at all? A few black dots were rapidly approaching them. What welcomed them was Ling Su's beast-like and ferocious smile. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the sword chi had disappeared. The number of times that the other party had struck out with his spear was actually more than all of them combined. How was this possible? The company leader of 2nd Platoon turned pale with fright. What kind of martial technique was this? He had never encountered such a situation before. The energy flow of the entire platoon was actually sluggish. Others might think that this was too exhausting, but the paranoid Ling Su had a special fondness for spear running. He could advance while cultivating. Where else could he find such a good thing? The squad leader had rich battle experience, and after being shocked, he immediately changed his tactics. He pulled back the swift short sword in his hand, and under the influence of his aura, the other 9 members behind him also pulled back their swift short swords. Swallow kill. Jing Hao, who was in the air, had a calm expression in his eyes. The large sword in his hand was trembling and buzzing. It had long been thirsty. This crazy person. Such a strong martial artist was definitely not a nameless person. The squad in front of him was advancing at a high speed and quickly changed their positions. The 10 of them quickly shrunk, transforming into a shuttle shape. The light auras around all of them merged into one, transforming into a large light shuttle. He had originally wanted Sai Lei to create another mount for him, but Sai Lei was immersed in his research and did not have the time to care about him. Ling Su himself did not care much about the matter, so he threw it to the back of his mind. His spear aura was like a star. Shwa, the silver light exploded, and like a bolt of lightning, he rushed to the front of the squad. Ling Su quickly found a method that caused everyone to be dumbstruck. Good. 10 swords thrusted out at the same time. The light shuttle dimmed, and a 3 m long swift, with a clear cry, flew out from the light shuttle. Like a bolt of lightning, it flew straight for Ling Su. In the air, Crane held onto his sword and danced lightly, his feet moving in profound and unpredictable footwork, his loose black robes fluttering and agile, like a black crane dancing. His expression was devout, his gaze was clear as water, the crane sword in his hand. His sword techniques were extremely natural. As though he had opened a corner of time, a faint stream quietly flowed from the ancient times, entering his body from the sword blade. Ling Su's spear dash caused Tang Tian to drool. The crazy young man was ashamed. Such a flashy way of advancing, he actually did not have it. How could he raise his head in front of Ling Su in the future? No, 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 I must definitely do it. The godlike young lad's strength must be all round. Ling Su did not have any obsession with the sword goat antelope, just like how he did not have any obsession with the silver frost mounts. He followed some traditions, that was his respect and yearning for Master Old Man Yu, but in essence, he disdained the traditions of the silver frost mounts. Not only him, the rest of his subordinates also revealed looks of shock. In the army, such a powerful person was the best choice to be the vanguard. Rather than wasting time on other aspects, why not focus on the sword? The silver aura that was like a storm struck the group of swallows. Swoosh! The silver spear thrusted out like lightning, his body moving along with the spear. The silver light flashed in the air, and his figure appeared 60 m away. Following that, another spear thrusted out, swoosh, another ray of silver light. The spear did not stop. The silver light was continuous, fast as lightning. Tang Tian's speed was extremely fast. Even Jing Hao, who was not fast, was carried by Crane. Currently, in the entire place, Crane, who had the demonic feather, was the fastest. Time changed the world. The things that disappeared would disappear, the things that were destroyed would be destroyed, the so-called glory belonged to others. What did it have to do with him? The zero-energy body caused his body to lose the ability to store energy. The energy was forced to be stored in the spirit domain, but it opened up a brand new path. From the looks of it, the energy stored in the spirit domain was only half of the energy stored in their dantian. It looked like they had become weaker, but Ling Su knew they had a wider space. His white robe and silver hair fluttered in the air. His face was full of arrogance and craziness. His slightly squinted orange pupils were restrained. The silver spear in his hands did not move at all. It was as stable as molten iron pouring into his silver palms. Blazing and cold, releasing and restraining, they interweaved to form an extremely tense scene. A group of 50 men immediately separated from the group and rushed towards them, destroying ghosts and gods. Relying on the few of them, it was difficult to shake an army of 500 men. Their current mission was Precious Bright City. As for the army, it was better to leave it to Shi Sen, the old fox. Luckily, the opponent's position was on their right, and there was some distance between them and not in front of them. The second group did not expect that not only did the enemy not retreat, they even initiated an attack. Equally excited was Ling Su, the battle maniac. He wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf, stabbed them to death with one spear. I'll go first. A formless undulation, with him as the center, like a ripple, it spread out silently. In truth, even Jing Hao was envious. Jing Hao knew how to fly, but his speed was not fast. His current sword techniques had nothing to do with speed. But he did not spend time on his body techniques. His understanding of laws was the most profound among them. He knew that his current realm was still shallow. When his sword concept laws reached a higher level, the problem of speed would be easily solved. Yes. Countless swallow-shaped sword auras suddenly poured out from the light shuttle, densely packed like rain, pouncing towards Ling Su. Pierce of the origin, Ling Su's early killing technique. Through evolution and exploration, he created the current, star's origin pierce of the origin. Because the space in the dantian could not be expanded, but the spirit domain could continue to strengthen. The squad leader at the front suddenly shouted, "Kill!" The light of the swallow sword auras lit up Ling Su's fanatical and crazy face, and the squinted orange pupils. The light aura exploded, The flames seemed to have broken through the thin layer of rocks at the mouth of a volcano, wantonly flowing out, covering the entire field of vision. The entire light shuttle exploded, and at the same time, the swallow sword auras that flew out exploded. The squad leader had long noticed Ling Su, the opponent's killing intent, caused his heart to tremble, and with his attack, he did not hold back at all. The swallow was instantly pierced, and the star's origin pierce of the origin pierce of the origin entered the light shuttle. The current Ling Su was like a regiment of blazing flames, a regiment of sharp flames. Yaya, who was on Tang Tian's shoulder, cried out, his small fists pounding his chest with all his might, producing banging sounds. Little Fool, who was at the side, rolled his eyes. Yaya's rhythm of pounding his chest was extremely familiar. Do you think this is a drum set, idiot? Comprehending the chi, Crane's body stretched out, like a black crane raising its head and crying out. Jing Hao glanced at the squadron that was rushing over, and said lightly, Crane, let's go. The shattered auras swirled around, like snow floating in the air. Sun Jia never thought that a small squadron would actually be wiped out in one move. The opponent's strength far exceeded his expectations, an expert. With that said, the demonic feather trembled, and Crane brought Jing Hao, and their figures suddenly disappeared. There are enemies in front. Tang Tian shouted at the top of his lungs. He rubbed his palms together, his face full of excitement. He had long been impatient. His path was long different. The gigantic fireball enveloped the sky. The entire squadron was annihilated. Not a single one survived. The squad leader gathered all his strength. His eyes opened wide in anger, the swallow sword suddenly thrusting out. He roared crazily, his fingers rubbing the silver spear, the surging energy and surging power. At the same time, his silver spear exploded. Tired? If you are afraid of being tired, why train? I can also train my endurance, Ling Su thought. Bang! A brand new path meant that he could no longer strictly follow the inheritance, but he did not care at all. His power did not all come from the inheritance. But his sweat, every bit of enlightenment, was soaked in sweat. Next was Tang Tian, or more accurately, Little Fool. Little Fool alone carried Tang Tian, Wang Xian and Yaya, and could be said to be the representative of the coolies. The most surprising thing was Ling Su. It was not only his speed, but the way he was advancing. Feeling the surging power in his body, he was like a wild beast pouncing forward with his body arched. These few days of training caused his physical body's strength to increase greatly. His spirit domain was the strongest out of the few, even stronger than Jing Hao, because he had the silver transformation. In the bitter battle in Big Dipper, his potential was constantly being stimulated, the silver transformation frequently acting up. His spirit domain was already much stronger. Both parties did not have the intention to slow down and clashed head-on. Ling Su's performance caused Tang Tian's blood to boil. He raised both of his arms, strained his throat, and shouted word by word, Little Su, Su. He was surprised in his heart. His 500 men were the elites of the army. They had gone through many rounds of selection and had gone through the tempering of battles. In a place like the Shang system, they should not have any opponents. Furthermore, in one move, all 10 of them were killed? Sweat doesn't lie. Chapter 581. The agile light swallow did not seem to sense the incoming danger. The sword light descended from the sky, straight as a ruler, as though it was cutting tofu. The group of light swallows were split into two. The 7 soldiers were not able to dodge in time, and could only watch as the sword light swept past their bodies. For example, with the swordsman as the arrowhead, with 2 companies by his side, their ability to break through was extremely sharp. So powerful! Tang Tian's eyes were fixated on them. Jing Hao and Crane's performance caused him to be fascinated. His gaze swept past the enemies, and very quickly he locked onto the most conspicuous person in the group. A few seconds was enough. Wait a minute. Jing Hao looked even more ordinary, but Jing Hao at that moment had attracted everyone's attention. He was dressed in simple clothes, quietly floating in the air, the black sword in his hand. Every movement was free and easy, without any killing intent. The ethereal and graceful sword dance. No one felt that it was pleasing to the eyes, only fear that came from the bottom of their hearts. He was a true swordsman. Crane's sudden appearance caused the soldiers to panic, and they could only instinctively defend. In the blink of an eye, 10 soldiers had died, causing the captain of the second high school to be extremely shocked. Jing Hao, who was above him, was releasing a cold intent, causing him to be enraged. Protection of the swallow. It was a true massacre, a one-sided massacre. From the start to the end, the second high school did not have any threatening attacks, and were in a state of being suppressed. I am devout to the sword, I am focused on the sword, but I will not lose myself in the sword. And Crane's silent reaping caused the brave and courageous high school to show signs of collapse. Shirsen had told them before, to any army, formations were the foundation of the majority of tactics. If not, they would not even be able to synchronize their energy. The might of the sword wave was not considered strong, and only lasted for a few seconds, and after a few seconds, it once again dissipated into the seemingly chaotic formless ripples. Massacre. Sun Jie secretly praised in his heart. He was actually looking forward to the result of the slash on the protection of the swallow. He initially thought that the trip to the Shang continent would be boring, but he did not expect to meet a few strong people. The entire platoon had long been enveloped by these seemingly chaotic and formless ripples. The seemingly graceful and ethereal sword dance was actually filled with killing intent. The ripples that seemed to only be able to disturb one's mind quietly overlapped with each other, forming a formless sword wave. Hundreds of light swallows flew around, forming an extremely thick defensive barrier. The swallow's protection was different from a normal defense shield. These light swallows were flexible. The light swallows would automatically choose to gather at the most dangerous place. But it was not the first time Crane and Jing Hao had encountered the sacred Saint Galaxy army. After sparring with Shirsen, they had grasped some of the specialties of armies, and the most important thing was the formation. Sun Jie quickly calculated in his heart, but he wasn't too worried. Even if the swallow protection was only 75% complete, it wasn't something that a single person could break. That's great. At that moment, that person swung his sword. That's right, that's him. In the blink of an eye, only the platoon leader and the 4 soldiers were left. Unfortunately, he was too slow. Pew pew pew. Chance. Witnessing the scene, the military generals and soldiers all had pale faces. All of the dead soldiers suddenly had their throats cut open by an invisible sword, and suddenly exploded. But Sun Jie's face changed. The drunk on Saint blood in his hand revealed a demonic dark red color, like a burning hot iron. The flesh on Jing Hao's palm started to burn, but Jing Hao's expression remained the same, as though he did not feel anything. Sun Jie's green face finally relaxed. The second high school captain's reaction was not slow, which meant that he did not panic. Swallow's protection was their specialized defensive tactic, and under extremely disadvantageous circumstances, it was able to give them time to breathe. If one looked closely, they would discover that there was a transparent shield of light on each of the light swallows. But let's take a look first. The man in front of him was emitting the aura of a swordsman. He was already thinking about their background, and whether or not he could recruit them to fill up his own vanguard unit. Although Sun Jie advocated for overall control, but that did not mean that he would ignore the use of the vanguard unit. Regardless of whether it was the partial tearing or the messy battle or the most common sneak attacks, they were all the specialties of these arrogant and unruly fugitives. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. He could tell with one look that he was the leader of the group. The shock on their faces had not disappeared, and the energy in their bodies had already gone out of control. But Sun Jie, who had seen a true swordsman before, knew how dangerous they were. Maybe you could use 200 men to easily kill them, but if you were not prepared, they would be like a hard awl, piercing through your defense, and the rusty sword tip would already be at your throat. It was impossible to describe the beauty of the sword. It did not have much brilliance, but Sun Jie's vision was split into 2 by the straight sword light without any arc. So, everyone had never given up. I am not chasing after power, but the sword in my heart. All of the soldiers felt as though they had been pardoned, and immediately ran away. No one thought that Yen Hu would actually be unable to block the sword. The surroundings were raging with flames, their ears were ringing, the soldiers were stupefied, they instinctively rushed out of the explosion. Swordsman. Sun Jie's heart turned cold. Crane's feet moved, continuously stepping on the 7 stars. The sword was like a swimming dragon, sweeping across the sky. The dazzling changes were as smooth as flowing water. Chi. 6 soldiers' throats spurted out blood at the same time. Swordsman was an ancient profession, so ancient that they could not keep up with the times. They did not care about winning, they only cared about the sword in their hands, and only cared about their understanding of the sword and what realm they had reached. They ate the wind and drank the dew, alone, chasing after their illusory dreams. They were already unable to keep up with the times. Under such circumstances, they were still able to maintain their formation, showing that they were well trained. Jing Hao did not care, and once again raised drunk on saint blood in his hand. The straight sword light once again appeared in the sky. It did not flash past, but like a scratch on glass, it remained in the sky. Deathly silence. All the swordsmen would always have their own weird points. The remaining 40 people, the light auras around their bodies, merged into one, and over 100 big and small light swallows flew out from the troops, flying around the troops, covering them tightly. Nimble, intelligent, flexible defense, that was the strongest point of Yen Hu. The soldier at the very front suddenly had a strange sluggishness on his face. He froze on the spot, and almost instantly broke free from this state. However, he felt a pain in his throat, and a stream of blood spurted out. His eyes widened in fear, and the blood spurting out like an arrow turned into a bloody mist in his vision. Sun Jie's pupils suddenly dilated, his expression was as though he had seen a ghost. Hearing those words, Sun Zheng's face immediately became pale white. Bang! The opponent's attacking methods were endless and impossible to defend against. 10 soldiers lost control and fell from the sky. There would always be a time when an individual's strength was exhausted. Only with the wisdom of a group could they truly change the world. They did not fit in with the times, their entire bodies reeked of a stale smell. They stubbornly held on to things that were already outdated and were not willing to let go. So, everyone was advancing. There was nothing more terrifying than an unknown death that was so close to them. Sun Jie stared at the ghost-like black figure in the sky. That's right, it was the formless sword ripple. That black figure, every time he changed his position, there would be a formless and colorless ripple. This was an era of teamwork, an era where armies ruled. The soldiers who had just rushed out of the fire only felt their vision blur, and a ghost-like figure entered their vision. In the blink of an eye, a few more people fell, and without exception, all of them were hit in their vitals. Jing Hao brandished drunk on saint blood, and 7 straight sword auras suddenly blossomed from the sword body. Like 7 extremely fine light beams, they entered the heads of 7 soldiers. In just a few rounds, the elite 2nd platoon was left with only 4 people. Almost all of them were massacred, showing the difference in strength between the two sides. Ling Su's wanton craziness, Crane's ethereal aura, did not give Sun Jie as much of a shock as Jing Hao. The entire platoon was also split into 2 by the sword. An entire platoon of swallow protection was extremely difficult to break. With 10 people missing, its performance was affected, and the damage was at least 25%. He knew that even if he returned alive, he would be punished by the master. But in such a short period of time, the 2nd platoon was left with so few people, causing his heart to ache. Even if the master were to punish him, he could not care less. The ghost-like black figure had already disappeared. Crane and Jing Hao realized at the same time that it was the best opportunity, and the 2 of them brazenly took action. Sword concept law. Although the sword was not considered strong, but it contained sword concept law as expected of a swordsman. In the blink of an eye, there were less than 20 people left. The platoon leader's heart was in despair. He could not care about anything else and shouted, "Retreat! Retreat to the main formation." The entire place quietened down, as though the air had congealed. "Hey, white-clothed sissy, come out and fight." Jing Hao's 2 sword auras that were filled with sword concept law did not cause the platoon to collapse. The sudden explosion of their comrades also did not cause the platoon to collapse. 2 seconds later, the 10 soldiers in the middle of the platoon, all of their foreheads had an extremely thin blood wound, the blood wound slowly spreading out. He cupped both of his hands around his mouth, pulled his throat, and shouted with all his might. Sun Jie could no longer hold it in and exclaimed, "Formless sword ripple." The ripples that were released had the effect of disturbing people's state of mind. The sword ripple that came and went without a trace was impossible to defend against. The blood light burst out. No matter how fierce you are, how ruthless you are still a sword in my hand. Tang Tian felt his blood boiling. His fighting intent was completely aroused by the astonishing performance of the few people. He had long forgotten that he should rush over and reach Treasure Light earlier. He only had one thought in his mind, and that was to fight. Fight fiercely. It was as though he was a death god dressed in a black robe, dancing gracefully. Every time he danced, he would reap a life. You do not know when it will be your turn, you do not know where the sword ripple will appear, and where it will attack you when you know you will already be dead. His body was quickly falling, his consciousness starting to fade. Why can't I see that sword? The flames from the energy explosion enveloped the entire platoon. Chapter 582. Such a powerful cousin brother was actually called a sissy. Sun Zheng, who was extremely careful, noticed that the veins behind his cousin brother's ears were twitching, and quietly moved to the side. Retreat without permission, kill. Crane face-bombed, Ling Su face-bombed, Little Fool face-bombed, Yaya face-bombed, even the steady Jing Hao had the urge to face-palm. Crane said softly, "While these people are attracted by Tang Tian, we will first go to Precious Bright City and save the rest." But, since the opponent's schemes were so deep, then he would definitely not throw his life away, and definitely had some unexpected killing technique. Sun Zheng was happy, but following that, his gaze was stunned by his cousin brother's terrifying aura. Ling Su immediately laughed, patted his chest, and said righteously, "Without me, aren't you guys in danger? Crazy Tang is an unkillable cockroach, don't bother about him." Little Fool's heart trembled. Sun Jie was the first person that Tang Tian had met as an opponent. Towards the Sacred Saint Galaxy, which was dominated by armies, Little Fool initially thought that their individual strengths would be extremely bad, but Little Fool knew that he was wrong. What a deep scheming mind. Although he was a wine bag and rice bag, but towards his own cousin brother, he understood him more than any other person. His own cousin brother usually looked refined and cultured. Regardless of who he was humble and courteous. But Sun Zheng knew, under this layer of disguise, was a cold and ruthless heart. In the formation, 4 palm-sized light swallows swept out like lightning, instantly hitting the chests of the 4 remaining soldiers, causing their bodies to freeze in place. "Are you humiliated?" Ling Su rejoiced in their misfortune. He suddenly remembered that he was also wearing white clothes. His face changed, and immediately cleared himself up with a straight face. "It has nothing to do with what clothes I wear. I feel that he is truly a sissy." Sun Jie squinted his eyes. That was interesting. He had never seen such a technique before. The usage of energy was extremely exquisite. But this level of attack is not enough to defeat me. Such a pity. Tang Tian interrupted impatiently. "Hey, stop talking nonsense. Do you want to fight? White sissy." "What? White sissy?" Sun Zheng looked at his cousin's demon-like back and shook his head repeatedly. "This is definitely a method the other party used to confuse us. Who would be stupid enough to say their intentions out loud? They must be trying to make us split up. It's a conspiracy. There must be a conspiracy." The people of the sanctuary were born as saints, and they were born with the ability to mobilize energy. This also gave them a unique advantage in terms of cultivation. However, this did not mean that everyone was an expert. His face was filled with innocence and feigned innocence. His disguise was flawless. Coupled with his provocative words, even he fell for it. It could be seen that his methods were superb. Then he used his companions to pretend to accidentally expose his intentions. A series of conspiracies quickly formed in Sun Jie's mind. Sun Jie said coldly with a calm face, Even though they were enemies, he still sympathized with them. The rage that Sun Jie was suppressing finally exploded. He flew into a rage. "Since you want to die, I'll grant your wish." "Shut up." Sun Jie turned around and roared in anger. He stepped out from the crowd. If he didn't turn this bastard's bones into ashes today, he swore that he would not rest. Crane's face was filled with helplessness as he muttered softly, "Hey, our plan is to go to Precious Bright City." Although it was a very low level and not a complete energy transformation, it meant that the other party was already at the edge of the silver rank. In time, he would definitely step into the realm of silver rank. Sun Jie forcefully restrained the anger in his chest. Using his greatest restraint, he slowly exhaled a long breath and forced himself to remain calm. "Your target is Precious Bright City? Don't tell me you guys are from the Shang continent? You guys?" His stepmother had continuously sent out 6 servants, but none of them lived for more than 3 months. What was even more terrifying was that his cousin brother did not leave behind any evidence. His temperament, so hurtful. "You're thinking too much." The few of them retorted at the same time. No one believed that Crazy Tang was so smart. Jing Hao was a little sympathetic. A scholar can be killed but not humiliated. Behind Tang Tian, Ling Su revealed an enlightened expression. He gave a thumbs up and said softly, "Crazy Tang is so smart. Provoke the other party's boss, then kill him with a spear. To capture the bandits, first capture the leader." Jing Hao nodded his head. Crane glanced at Ling Su. "Oh, I understand. You wear white clothes." When Sun Jie flew out of the formation, he stopped 30 m away from Tang Tian. He had already calmed down. He was an outstanding military general. To think that a person with just a few words made him give up his advantage. He immediately realized what was going on and could not help but be frightened. Sun Jie's body technique was extremely agile and exquisite. It was like nature itself. Compared to the flying spirit techniques in Heaven's Road, it had many traces of being chiseled. Thinking about it, little fool understood. Sacred Saint Galaxy people were born with the ability to fly. To them, flying was an instinct. Sissy. Energy transformation. That was what Sun Jie was most confident about. Although the opponent was scheming and had an unfathomable background, but without a doubt, the opponent had not gained enlightenment on energy transformation. Regardless of what tricks the opponent had, as long as he had not gained enlightenment on energy transformation, he would definitely not be able to win against him. Ling Su did not feel anything. He excitedly waved the silver spear in his hand and transformed into a silver light. "Precious Bright City, go, go, go." The adjutant beside him had a cold glint in his eyes. He loudly agreed. "Behead him." "Why not? Are you that powerful?" Tang Tian was curious. "But this has nothing to do with being powerful or not. This is... Oh, temperament. That's right. That's right, temperament." The disparity of at least 10 times of energy was an insurmountable gap between bronze saints and silver saints. Above bronze was silver. It was extremely difficult to advance to a silver saint. If we were to say that bronze saints were saints, they needed to have a basic understanding of energy. Their forte was the precise and outstanding control of the energy in their bodies. Recently, things had been going too smoothly for him. He was slightly careless. He needed to reflect on himself. When ordinary people are born, they do not have any grades. After going through systematic training, their personal strength would increase. With a basic understanding of energy, after passing professional tests, they would be able to obtain the certification of a bronze saint. Everyone in the 8th Army revealed expressions of fear. The entire unit kept quiet out of fear. They did not even dare to breathe. How was the master's temper? In his heart, he was secretly gloating. Crazy Tang was truly too hurtful. But he glanced at Sun Jie and silently gave him a thumbs up. "Hey, I'm making my move," Tang Tian shouted. Before he even finished speaking, he had already made the first move. "But this is a good opportunity." Sun Zheng was also dumbstruck. "Sissy." The blazing energy was like fireflies that filled the sky. They fluttered about without end. Shua, regardless if it was the enemy or Tang Tian's side, everyone's eyes instinctively turned to look at Sun Jie. The air seemed to have solidified. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive. When he was 9 years old, he personally killed the servant that his stepmother had sent to monitor him and then faked the scene. Sun Jie dodged lightly. Such an attack did not pose any threat to him. As one of the vast stars, 3 stars, Sun Jie's individual strength was outstanding. Before the age of 30, he had already reached the silver rank. Among the many military generals in the vast star continent, he was the only one. Ling Su suddenly waved his hand at Tang Tian and shouted loudly, "Hey, Meng Nan, I'll leave this place to you. We are going to Precious Bright City." Sun Jie's face turned red and green, green and black, black and white. "Is this your trump card?" Dazzling sparks swept across the sky. Tang Tian whistled and changed his claw technique. Bang! Ling Su was hesitant. It would be a pity to miss such a huge battle. He said, "Why don't you guys go, and I stay behind to help Crazy Tang?" Tang Tian's punches missed a few times, but he was not discouraged at all. Instead, he became even more excited. He shouted out loud. Changing his fist into a claw, he suddenly clawed at Sun Jie. The flying technique that he had trained day and night was something that Heaven's Road could never compare to. "Master!" The adjutant saw that things were not going well and immediately advised. Tang Tian waved his hand without turning his head, his fighting spirit soaring. Go, leave this place to me." 4 balls of flames blossomed in the sky and engulfed the 4 figures. The rest of them almost dropped from the sky. Their intentions were exposed just like that. This idiot. But the silver rank was a whole different world. Its core difference was energy transmutation. His subordinate thought that it made sense and immediately said, "Master is wise." Bronze saints meant that they were different from ordinary people. They were also the standard of selection for elite soldiers, and the most outstanding of them would hold the position of a small captain in the army. Sun Jie's pupils congealed. The firefly-like light regiments were burning energy. He could smell a familiar smell. Crane clenched his teeth. He was extremely regretful that he actually told Ling Su about his intention to fight. "All right, I am the stupid one." Little fool who was experienced in battles knew how important an outstanding flying technique was in a battle. The 2 figures intersected and chased each other in the sky. They were as fast as lightning, but as Little Fool deduced, Tang Tian was unable to even touch the corner of the opponent's clothes. Sun Jie decided to observe first. By destroying the microscopic structure of energy, one could obtain 10 times or even 10 times more energy. That was called energy transmutation. To be able to gain enlightenment on energy transmutation was the mark of becoming a silver saint. "Master, should we send people to Precious Bright City?" His subordinate came over and asked Sun Zheng. Sun Jie's gaze suddenly turned cold, and in his hand was a short sword shaped like a swift. Sun Jie's mouth revealed a cold smile. His cousin brother, who was by his side, had already calmed down, while Sun Zheng's calves were trembling. When he was young, he had seen his cousin brother take care of a servant. His calm face caused him to pee in his pants. And it was from that moment onwards, his cousin brother's calm face was deeply imprinted in his mind. Sun Jie became even more cautious. Demon King Blazing Firefly. His cousin brother was angry. "Sissy?" Sun Jie squinted his eyes and smiled. "I never thought that someone would actually dare to say such words to me." The entire family was intimidated by his cousin brother, and even his stepmother felt a chill down her spine and took the initiative to stop. And on the 3rd day after his cousin brother became the commander of the army, the mechanical boat she was on had an accident and died. In a flash, he appeared by Sun Jie's side and punched toward Sun Jie. The rest followed with helpless faces. Only Little Fool and Yaya stayed behind. Chapter 583. Yaya. Yaya's screams were incessant. It was quickly falling down. It did not know how to fly, and was relying on Little Fool's help to keep it afloat. At that moment, Little Fool's energy was completely exhausted. It immediately became like a weight, falling down. Gemini constellation was sealed for 20 years, And so was the palace. Boom. I've been in this palace for 16 years, and I haven't wasted a single moment. Pa pa pa. The power of a silver saint was unimaginable to a bronze saint. Wait a minute. Even the term saint was named after their nostalgia for their hometown. But regardless of whether it was the sacred Saint Galaxy or Heaven's Road, there was no difference between the realms of saints. There was a clear cry of a swallow. Little fool. Waiter. His intelligence, perseverance, maturity, calmness, and even his silence made these spirit general teachers feel that he was perfect. If not for this period of time, Little Fool had poured all his heart and soul into the forceful subjugating bead, and had a deeper understanding of the forceful subjugating bead, adding that his own attainments in the sword were rather outstanding, second only to Jing Hao. He would have barely managed to do it. The sword's light dimmed, and a palm-sized swift that looked like it was carved out of pure silver flew out from the sword and landed on Sun Jie's shoulder. The silver swallow was extremely lively, and its small eyes were extremely quick-witted. It jumped on Sun Jie's shoulder, and from time to time, it would peck Sun Jie's shoulder intimately. All right, I can't be outdone by that idiot. Boom. But he couldn't get out. The palace gate couldn't be opened. His father must have already made arrangements. The palace was transformed into a place suitable for souls to live. The exit of the palace was left on his body. There was a large number of ancient books in the palace, all of which his father had meticulously collected. He had already made arrangements for everything. That was a soul puppet. The burning clumps of energy exploded like firecrackers. The scene of tens of thousands of fireflies exploding at the same time was extremely spectacular. Silver feathers flew everywhere, but the sword light did not diminish. The creator of the 12 ecliptic palaces brought the martial techniques of the sacred domain to the Heaven's Road. Furthermore, in the environment of the Heaven's Road with a high spirit and low energy, they developed a martial technique that was completely different from the sacred domain. Saint Sword Ocean Prison. The small silver swallow released an extremely dangerous aura. However, it was already too late. The current situation didn't allow him to retreat. There were also times when he was happy, such as watching that idiot do stupid things from afar. Little Fool knew that something was wrong. He knew that the situation was dire. He rushed forward, his right hand that was hanging by his side clenched. Borrowing the momentum, he pulled out the ocean prison sword from the void. Holding onto the forceful subjugating bead in his left hand, from the sea of laws in the forceful subjugating bead, a golden rune chain that looked like seaweed flew out, quietly coiling around his ocean prison sword, and entered the spirit-devouring flame. His sword saint teachers had explained to him in detail what silver was. An intense explosion blossomed with dazzling light. The world was covered in a vast expanse of whiteness. The loud explosion shook everyone's ears and caused them to buzz. The ocean prison sword immediately changed, although the spirit-devouring flame coiled around the sword blade, but the void dark flames and the spirit-devouring flame did not merge. This time, with the addition of the golden runes, the two completely fused together. However, this sword strike had already exhausted all of his energy. There was not a single drop of energy left in his body. The energy density of the silver crystal was 46 times that of the highest grade star stone. He was different from the Fool, as the dark side of Gemini constellation. Ever since he was born, he had lost control of his body and lived in another place. Even so, his arms felt like they were about to break, and he could not help but groan again. The Fool was not clear of the gap between the silver and bronze, but he understood. 5 years of fundamental training, his perseverance, caused people to raise their eyebrows. Even from afar, he could feel the light and heat emitted by the Fool. He was truly a fellow that would unknowingly burn people's eyes. The citizens outside the palace were still reminiscing about their former king, and every year, there would be an endless stream of citizens that would come to the palace to pay their respects. Little Fool listened to the pious footsteps, listened to the whispers of prayers in the wind. 20 years of time was not enough for the once proud people to lose their faith. Maybe the hope was slim, but before they died, no one could erase it. The two light auras clashed without any fancy moves. Sun Jie's face changed. He had never seen such a weird sword aura before, and an intense sense of danger enveloped his heart. Little Fool had never been so serious before, because he had never been in such a dangerous situation before. The small and exquisite silver swallow was more powerful than any enemy he had ever met before. If the energy in the silver swallow exploded, it could destroy 1/30th of the entire red grass planet. That was Sun Jie's greatest confidence. He chuckled, bringing along a deep sense of pride. Tang Tian stared straight at the silver swallow, his eyes revealing a look of disbelief. Little Fool, who was behind Tang Tian, also revealed a look of shock. Sun Jie's eyes were wide open, his heart jumping. The requirements to form a spirit dyad were extremely harsh, and to be able to play with a spirit dyad, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Furthermore, he had never heard of such a powerful spirit dyad. The other party's background was definitely not ordinary. The surging energy storm was like a hurricane, suddenly spewing out from the small and exquisite silver swallow's beak. Without hesitation, he used the best method he could think of to borrow the power of the forceful subjugating bead. But not for failure. The energy in Little Fool's body was instantly sucked dry by the gold symbols. He did not panic. With his strength, facing a silver saint, he had no chance of winning. Little Fool revealed a helpless look. The world in front of him was spinning. His consciousness was becoming blurry. Am I going to die? To him, the Shang continent was completely worthless. The problem of conscripting people was not a big problem. Without the Shang continent, he could go to the Summer continent. Even if Sun Zheng did not complete it in the end, he could use his and the Sun family's face to plead with Master Ziqing, and Master Ziqing would not make things difficult for him. Little Fool waved his sword without hesitation. But the sea of laws inside the forceful subjugating bead was vast and boundless. If he were to fight inside the forceful subjugating bead, he would be able to do it easily. But to guide the power of the sea of laws from the bead to the sword, the difficulty increased by 10 times. The silver swallow's light aura burst forth, transforming into a silver light, pouncing towards the sword light. The spirit-devouring flame's colors completely disappeared, becoming transparent, while the pitch-black void dark flames also became much dimmer, as though it was a shadow. The former glory of Gemini constellation was long gone. How is that possible? The silver feather, dissipated in the air, did not explode. How is that possible? Any of the small feather fragments were enough to cause an explosion. The swallow's pure silver body was formed from energy that had been compressed to the extreme, and thus condensed into a silver crystal. In essence, the structure of this silver crystal was not much different from the star stone. The only difference between the two was the density. The silver swallow's display of strength caused the entire formation to erupt in cheers. Everyone felt their blood boiling. This was an invincible master, who was hailed as a future famous general. Occasionally, Little Fool would want to go out. With the void as the sheath, the dark flames as the body, the willpower as the handle. The swallow's dagger suddenly lit up with a dazzling light aura. The energy in Sun Jie's body, after going through the energy transformation, its power had increased by 10 times. Tang Tian was sent flying by the astonishing Qi wave. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot into the thick clouds. The energy storm that the silver swallow spat out was extremely wide, and he was unable to dodge in time. He arched his body and used his arms to protect himself. A huge force came over, and Tang Tian felt as though he was being struck by a wild beast. He immediately understood that he could not resist it, and following the surging force, he was like a spring, borrowing the force, he shot backwards. For such a small matter, to create an enemy with a strong background was not a wise decision. Little Fool's face was extremely pale, his body swaying unsteadily. Silver Realm. Since the two of you won't die from the fall. Tang Tian immediately sensed Little Fool's strange state and immediately became anxious. The ground in his vision was getting bigger, and he was about to crash into it. Tang Tian clenched his teeth and suddenly made an unexpected move. I have been in the shadow of this palace for 16 years, waiting for hope in the cold night. The silver swallow suddenly spread its wings, transforming into a silver light. Like a silver arrow, it shot towards the clouds. Tang Tian screamed out continuously. He had met the same fate as Yaya. What was even more tragic was that he was sent flying even higher, and thought that little fool would catch him, but who knew that his falling momentum did not slow down at all. The wind whistled past his ears, and the ground was getting closer and closer to him. Tang Tian could not care about anything else, and screamed out loud. He was regretting the battle in his heart. Chi. A transparent and shadowy sword aura appeared in front of the silver swallow. Tang Tian had the southern cross base, while he had the Gemini palaces. Tang Tian was ignorant of the future, while he was entrusted with a heavy mission. Your bravery and fearlessness, your light and heat, will always warm and motivate your companions. It was different from what the younger generation thought. In the hearts of the majority of martial artists in Heaven's Road, the Saint Realm was the highest peak. But at that time, in the eyes of the founders of the sacred Saint Galaxy, the Saint Realm was just the beginning. The silver swallow sensed danger and screeched. All of its silver feathers stood up. Whoosh! Its feathers were like silver arrows, pouncing towards the sword aura. When the light aura dissipated, the noble and agile silver swallow's entire right wing had been sliced off. The wound looked extremely terrifying. Little Fool's situation was even worse. The ocean prison sword in his hand had broken inch by inch. Bang! It transformed into a broken aura that dissipated in the air. So, the spacious and empty palace was covered in dust. The spiders diligently left their nets in every corner that they could see. The cracks in the walls were overgrown with weeds and dilapidated walls. They could be seen everywhere. Suddenly, Little Fool's mouth revealed a faint smile. His young and adorable face was as sharp as a sword, releasing an imposing aura. Every single detail of his 16 years of life flashed past his mind. Other than that, there were his teachers, the 6 sword Saint Spirit Generals. There was the ocean prison sword Saint Wu Wang Hai, the Pipa sword Saint Shang Wan Ting, etc. This made him not feel lonely, although the teachers were strict with him, and training was extremely boring and painful, but he was proud and had high expectations for himself, and was able to complete any training with outstanding results. Thus all of the teachers were full of praises for him. But most of the time, he was like the towering palace that was covered in dust, bearing the hopes of his people, bearing the hopes of his father. He could be silent, but he had to stand tall. He could be lonely, but he had to move forward. The silver swallow looked at the fireflies dancing in the sky, its eyes revealing a look of disdain. It suddenly opened its small beak and screeched. Chapter 584. Seeing that Tang Tian was struggling to climb up, Sun Jie felt that he was making a mountain out of a molehill. For such a trash, he had actually wasted so much time. The injured silver swift jumped onto the swift sword, the endless amount of energy continuously healing its injured body. What made Sun Jie's soul fly out of his body was that the energy that he had injected into the sword actually disappeared without a trace. Then what he did not expect was that Yaya's blue fist would suddenly become soft, suddenly grabbing onto the swift sword's blade. Following that, it swung its body, and like an octopus, it hugged onto the swift sword tightly. But in that short moment, half of the energy in Sun Jie's body was sucked out. This was the reason why Sun Jie threw away the sword in a panic. He had a premonition that if he did not throw away the sword, the energy in his body would be sucked dry. His biggest problem in the air was that he had nowhere to borrow strength from. But what if he were to create a place to borrow strength from? Sun Jie was bewildered. Spirit dyad? Doesn't seem like it. Yaya's face was filled with anger, its chubby little face, baring its teeth at Sun Jie. It usually enjoyed itself too much, although it had grown wings, but it was Little Fool who brought it to fly. It had a clingy personality, and treated it as a display of intimacy with Little Fool. If there was a day when Little Fool did not bring it to play, it would be disappointed, as though it had lost its favor. Although the people of the sacred Saint Galaxy naturally knew how to use energy, but there was a small chance that they would be unable to use energy at all. In the sacred Saint Galaxy, this was called energy barrier, which meant that there was a problem with using energy. Energy barrier was the most serious disability, even more serious than losing an arm or a leg. Without legs or hands, as long as one had the talent to use energy, they would be able to live. Energy could be used to do anything that one's hands and feet could do, and there were many grandmasters who were born with physical disabilities and relied more on energy control and were even more focused, causing them to be even more outstanding in their respective fields. But the next scene caused everyone to be dumbstruck. The Silver Swift was like a biscuit, being eaten by Yaya piece by piece, and after 10 seconds, the Silver Swift was completely in Yaya's stomach. What is that? The air layer shattered, but Tang Tian's figure suddenly rose a bit. Yaya raised its head and grinned at Sun Jie, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. It suddenly lowered its head and opened its mouth to bite the tip of the sword. Tang Tian, who was falling rapidly, took a deep breath, and all the energy in his body surged as he suddenly smashed his palm down. Was actually eaten. The silver swallow was completely formed from energy, and the energy contained in the silver swallow was extremely terrifying. If it exploded, everything within a 50-kilometer radius would definitely be razed to the ground. What a pity, this kind of trash didn't even have the slightest bit of value. Pa. However, what was even more unbelievable was that this monster was absorbing his energy. This was what truly terrified him. After all, after stepping into the silver realm, the energy would undergo energy transformation. Not only would its quantity increase, but its destructiveness would also increase. A shadow with a blue afterimage suddenly flew in front of him. The gloves were extremely small and perfectly covered Yaya's small fists. Sun Jie was the most affected. He stared at the fleshy little thing in shock. He could not believe his own eyes. Suddenly, he exclaimed out loud. 1 blue and 1 white, 2 straight light auras clashed without any fancy moves. The bigger the clan, the more intense the internal competition was. This kind of trash basically had no place to live. They could only rely on others, and live in the shadows, struggling at death's door. Everyone had the same question in their hearts at the same time. Sun Jie only felt a bone-chilling cold. The swift sword had followed him for many years, and was something that he had spent a large sum of money to hire a weapon refiner grandmaster to refine. It had followed him through tens of battles, big and small, and had never received any damage. Even the energy that had undergone energy transformation was unable to harm it. Kacha. The entire battlefield was extremely quiet, only the sound of kacha-kacha could be heard, and Tang Tian's gasping for breath could be heard. This kind of energy is impossible to absorb. Everyone's gaze landed on the figure that was hugging the sword and gnawing on it. The fleshy body, the blue light wings, and the blue stone on its forehead. The sword blade is gone. Even the sword hilt is gone. It was not loud, but it was like a wave of cold that engulfed the entire battlefield. Little Fool could do nothing about it. Ever since Yaya sacrificed himself to block the attack for him, every time he saw Yaya's disappointed face, he would think back to that day, and would always indulge Yaya. It was as though the video was stuck. It was stuck one after another. Bang bang bang. The highly compressed air layer formed beneath Tang Tian's palm. Feeling the sturdiness of the air layer, Tang Tian was ecstatic. He immediately borrowed the force and shot upwards. That's why I left my home and came to the Shang continent. Every domain of the sacred Saint Galaxy was inseparable from the control of energy. The surging energy storm wreaked havoc, causing the air in a radius of 10 li to be stirred. Sun Jie revealed a smile, but in his mind, could it be that he is born with an energy handicap? A blue light fist was about to strike the tip of his sword. Sun Jie clenched his teeth. The energy in his body frantically surged into the swift sword in his hand. But Yaya had already taken the chance to sit on the back of the silver swift sword, and the energy storm did not hit him. Yaya bared his snow-white teeth, his face revealing a fierce expression. It was him who injured Little Fool. Yaya was enraged, his guts surged, he lowered his head and bit the silver swift sword's neck. What kind of monster is he? A blue and a white light aura interweaved in the air. In the blink of the eye, the silver swift sword was back to normal, and nimbly jumped onto Sun Jie's shoulder. That is energy that has undergone energy transformation. Just as both parties were about to collide, Yaya suddenly dropped down, appearing below the silver swift sword, his hands extended out like lightning, and suddenly hugged the silver swift sword. And it seems like no one cares about me. Tang Tian was like a frog, his hands and legs fiercely slapped downwards, attempting to slow down his descent. And my own body is definitely not tougher than the swift sword. Seeing the swift sword in his hand shrinking at an astonishing speed, Sun Jie quivered. He threw down the swift sword that was only halfway down, and anxiously retreated. Tang Tian was like a wobbling rocket, suddenly rising up, rushing left and right. He did not have the slightest bit of elegance, but instead looked to be in a difficult situation. Tang Tian's first thought was to compress the air and form an air wall. Yaya suddenly stopped. He raised both of his arms and stared straight at him. It was different from the usual condensation of energy. This time, the energy was dispersed, but it was evenly distributed, like a large disk. Crack crack. The silver swift sword froze, and Sun Jie's face changed. Success! Yaya's body was fleshy and soft, and looked extremely different from a normal spirit general. Crack crack. But in front of the two neat rows of snow-white teeth, it was actually so weak. Crack crack. The silver swift sword seemed to have sensed danger approaching, and struggled with all its might, continuously opening its mouth to spit out a terrifying energy storm. Sun Jie's face became ugly. Just at that moment, his body suddenly froze. Sun Jie was scared silly. The snow-white teeth were like two rows of fine steel blades. No, steel blades were definitely not as ferocious. He could even see the two rows of teeth that Yaya opened and closed, causing metal shards to fly out. Yaya felt that it was very fresh. The two small fists clashed together, light auras splashing everywhere. Yaya immediately became excited. Its small eyes were extremely bright, banging on its chest, its mouth squeaking out weird sounds. Too ferocious. The army behind Sun Jie laughed out loud. They knew how to use energy from birth, and to them, flying was even more proficient than walking and had long become an instinct. Seeing that Tang Tian was like a frog, jumping up bit by bit, they naturally felt that it was extremely comical. When Yaya suddenly dropped, it was so scared that it flapped its wings with all its might, and finally stopped at a height of 30 m from the ground. When it saw that little fool was injured and fainted, it immediately went berserk. Without hesitation, it flew over to take revenge for little fool. Yaya burped with a satisfied look. The stone on its forehead suddenly lit up with a faint blue light. Threads of blue light flowed out from the stone and flowed along Yaya's body. The blue light threads were as smooth as water. They split into two parts. One part flowed into the light wings on its back. The light wings continued to grow and became bigger. The other part flowed into Yaya's fists and converged into a pair of blue gloves. Why bother with a bud spirit general? The blue light flashed. Sun Jie's eyes became blurred. A strong sense of danger surfaced in his mind. His face changed. The silver swift on his shoulder transformed into a silver light and welcomed the blue light. Everyone felt a chill from the bottom of their feet to their head. Its body was small and exquisite, as though it was hanging on the sword blade. Its head was only a few millimeters away from the sword tip. It had two rows of pure white teeth, with a few scraps of metal, as though the most savage beast in the forest had eaten its fill, with the remnants of meat and blood between its fangs. Sun Jie, who was initially afraid, no longer had any misgivings. Even if the opponent was from a big family, even if he was doted on, he was destined to have a tragic life due to his energy impairment. His speed slowed down slightly, although it was extremely small, but Tang Tian's mind was roused, and an extremely brazen idea surfaced in his mind. Sun Jie's face changed. The blue light was extremely fast. Without thinking, he raised the swift sword in his hand again. Yaya howled and pounced toward Sun Jie. The extremely sturdy sword blade was like a crispy biscuit, and Yaya was nibbling on it at an astonishing rate. Behind Yaya, Tang Tian was struggling to climb up bit by bit. Tang Tian had already thought of a name, which was Dry Pull. Ling Su had Spear Sprint. I have Dry Pull, but it's so tiring. When it finished gnawing on the last bit of the sword hilt, Yaya raised its small head. Its pair of faint blue eyes curved into two shallow blue crescent moons. Its chubby little face was filled with satisfaction. It laughed foolishly, but in the eyes of the group, it was undoubtedly the most terrifying scene. Tang Tian was overjoyed. Without saying a word, he slapped down again, and his body shot up again. Chapter 585. But this inexplicable guilt, where did it come from? Somersaulted in the air, and smiled foolishly as he yawned, his eyes becoming hazy. The young man's voice was cold and quiet. Yaya, who was completely dumbfounded, sat in the air with a silly smile. Tang Tian was like lightning, swept past him. The strong air current sent Yaya flying. Yaya, who was sent flying, was still smiling foolishly. Even his posture did not change. There was no trace of the tyrannical aura from before. Wait a minute. What has this characteristic got to do with me? Distracting thoughts, these are all distracting thoughts. Little fool's godly methods made Tang Tian surprised, but this kind of battle was not the way he liked to fight. He hated the feeling of being wronged. Suddenly, Tang Tian's body trembled, his eyes opened wide. You lied to me? Tang Tian's eyes opened wide, his face full of anger. A perfect disguise. William's disguise previously had completely numbed Tang Tian and Little Fool. With that, the devil flame exploded, dispersing into every corner of Tang Tian's body. Like a zither string being plucked, the devil flame's cold and violent aura, along with the bright red flame, spread out. Silver Realm. My name is William. What qualifications do I have? Tang Tian was completely enraged. Come, let me tell you, what qualifications do I have? Spirit. Tang Tian suddenly stomped his feet, and a circular air shield formed. After continuously trying adaptive for so long, Tang Tian realized he had thought too much. As long as he formed an air shield, he could completely borrow strength. Stepping on the shield, he shot up, his body suddenly increasing in height. The red-haired young man smiled, his eyes cold, flames rose, his body slowly merged into the flames. Roaring like thunder, he opened his arms, 10 fingers like hooks, fire scythe ghost claw, ready to strike. But there was no pain on Tang Tian's face, there was only endless fanaticism and fighting spirit. The red-haired youth's lips curled into a mocking smile. Under the madness in his eyes, Tang Tian saw an endless ice field. Tang Tian was pulled into a bright red world. A devilish young man with red hair and black eyes and a pale face suddenly appeared in front of him. In terms of energy control techniques, Sacred Saint Galaxy's Silver Saints were superior, since Heaven's Road's Silver Saints still needed the help of the Spirit Furnace to be able to complete the energy transformation. But in terms of efficiency, Tang Tian felt that Heaven's Road Silver Saints were stronger because of the Spirit Furnace. The short sword was raised horizontally, and his body was like a bow. It was the standard movement of thrusting the sword. He suddenly came to a realization. William had left a deep impression on Tang Tian in the short period of time they had spent together. Beneath his cynicism and craziness was a resolute will that was as firm as iron. After experiencing countless tortures, he was still laughing and talking as before. His saint soul was stripped away, but his corpse did not rot. All the light around his body turned into a sword light that was shaped like a swallow. It flapped its wings and let out a clear cry. As fast as lightning, it pounced towards Tang Tian. Come on. Sun Jie, who was flying at high speed, thrusted his sword out. Until today, when he had gained enlightenment on adaptive force, he had finally conquered the sky and finally found his own fighting style. Tang Tian's sudden burst of strength caused Sun Jie to be shocked. He had never seen such a weird way of advancing. The dense sound of the air shield shattering was like a rapid battle drum, like a surging tide. His fighting intent soared, the refracted figure's aura was rising rapidly. Heaven's Road's low-energy environment caused them to lose at the starting line, but it was also this low-energy environment that created the rich and colorful high-spirit world. Seeing that Yaya was fine, Tang Tian's heart calmed down, and he once again placed his attention on Sun Jie. The sky is beneath my feet. Until now, Little Fool had fainted. Facing such a good opportunity, William tore off his disguise and revealed his true self. The quality of the short sword was much worse than the swift sword, but to deal with an energy impediment, it was enough. The moment this thought popped out, it was immediately rejected by Tang Tian himself. The godlike young lad was naturally the smartest. Everyone has a demon in their heart, and only you understand it. I'm too full. So full that I'm sleepy. What are the advantages of spirits? What are the advantages of Heaven's Road? This was the question that Tang Tian thought about the most. After mixing with Uncle Bing for so long, Tang Tian finally had a vague idea of strategies and systems. He did not know much about other things. His thoughts were simple. If the gap between them and the sacred Saint Galaxy was so huge that they could not be crossed, then they would not have the chance to win. This was Tang Tian's first time meeting a true Silver Saint, and he did not expect it to be in the sacred Saint Galaxy. The Silver Saints of the sacred Saint Galaxy and Heaven's Road were different. Heaven's Road's Silver Saints had spirit furnaces, and energy transformations were completed inside the spirit furnaces. But Sun Jie was different. Sun Jie did not have a spirit furnace, but directly let the energy collide and complete the energy transformations. Sprinting, rushing with all his might, Tang Tian felt an indescribable satisfaction. He originally liked to rush forward like this, but after stepping into the saint level, the taste of fighting changed. Flying, this was a hurdle that he could not avoid, so he had no choice but to rely more on Little Fool. Living spirits have spirits, which also meant they were very intelligent. The higher the grade of the martial spirit, the more intelligent they would be. This point was very obvious in the aspect of mechanical techniques. The mechanical spirit weapons that Sai Lei created, compared to mechanical weapons, were much more intelligent and could better support mechanical martial artists. Before coming to the sacred Saint Galaxy, Tang Tian was already used to the spirit domain furnace. But after coming to the sacred Saint Galaxy, Tang Tian then knew that not every place could give birth to spirits. The biting cold sword aura was filled with an extremely dangerous qi, but this time, Tang Tian did not have any intention of retreating. The air shield below his feet seemed to shatter upon contact. He had no choice but to increase the frequency of his dry pull. He felt that he was unprecedentedly fast, so fast that he had to use all the strength in his body to barely control it. No matter how powerful the energy barrier was, so what? Yaya's ferocity similarly shocked Tang Tian, but his first thought was, this fellow eats everything, will he get diarrhea? But seeing Yaya's satisfied face, it was obvious that there was no problem, but that stupid and dazed look on his face made him look like he ate too much and became stupid. With every step, Tang Tian's speed would increase by a bit. After going through the black gold strengthening, his body was enduring an astonishing load. Towards Yaya, Sun Jie's heart had an indescribable fear. The unknown always made people afraid. But towards Tang Tian, Sun Jie did not have the slightest bit of fear. Such a method of sprinting was truly original, causing his eyes to light up, but such power did not exceed his knowledge, and even confirmed his guess that the opponent was an energy barrier. Sun Jie was a veteran general, and his sensitivity towards qi far surpassed ordinary people. He knew, if he waited for the opponent's qi to completely soar at that time, even if his own strength was stronger, it would be extremely difficult. As long as he did not let the opponent's qi rise, Sun Jie believed that he would quickly win. And towards Tang Tian's thunder-like attack, a cold light flashed past Sun Jie's eyes. He did not retreat, but instead advanced, with a short sword in his hand. Come, let's have a good fight. Silver ranked, be it the Honorable Martial Alliance, Temple, or even the powerhouses behind Temple, to defeat them, I have to be stronger than them. Silver ranked in front of me. Intelligence is the spirit's greatest characteristic. Compared to the sacred Saint Galaxy, spirits were unique to Heaven's Road. Any martial techniques, training, mechanical techniques in Heaven's Road, all of them were inextricably linked to spirits. That was Tang Tian's thoughts. There were many theories regarding the essence of spirits, but the most mainstream view was that spirits were energy transmuted into spirits. The laboratory had already proven that when the energy concentration exceeded a critical point, the corrosive effect of the energy would be prominent, and not only would the spirit be unable to complete its energy transformation, it would be corroded and completely become energy. He likes to fight. Then, let me experience the so-called energy transformation. the so-called silver-ranked realm. Comparing realms, Heaven's Road and the sacred Saint Galaxy who were born saints, were on a completely different level. Close combat, fists hitting flesh, that was a true man's fighting style. I only believe in myself. William chuckled, squinting his eyes. He pondered, what a fair fight. Come, I'll let you see my real devil flame, and please let me see, godlike young lad, what qualifications do you have? A dense light aura emitted from his body, wrapping around the short sword in his hand, slowly flowing. In mid-air, his body twisted into a fried dough twist. With a side kick, an air shield appeared horizontally. Stepping on the shield, Tang Tian's body bent, and his speed increased again. Who would care about the thoughts of an ant? Tang Tian's mind trembled. How is that possible? Inside the devil flame, how could there still be a trace of William's consciousness left? Didn't I remove it completely? The whistling sound filled his eardrums. The wind blowing against his face caused him to be unable to open his eyes. Every inch of his skin felt as though it was being cut by knives. The sky rumbled, the ground rumbled, raging flames covered the ground, a sea of fire, not knowing if it was his blood that was burning with fighting intent, or the fighting intent that was burning his blood. Every single nerve in his body was burning red, causing his entire body to tremble. He became even more excited. Then, let's fight to our heart's content. Whoosh, a bright red flame suddenly shot out from his palms, devil flame. Although we have the same enemy, and I have high hopes for you, but I prefer to personally take revenge. Returning to the most basic question, what was the advantage of Heaven's Road? Being crazy was the type of enemy that every military general hated the most. This kind of person was extremely difficult to deal with, and even if they won in the end, they would have to pay a huge price. Tang Tian shook his head, throwing all the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind. He licked his lips, his gaze becoming passionate. With adaptive fire, he could finally fight freely in the air. The devil flame was William's original spirit technique, but this devil flame had its energy removed by Tang Tian, leaving behind only the portion that contained laws. A large number of air shields suddenly appeared in the air. They were distributed in different positions, horizontally, vertically, intersecting. Tang Tian was like a rubber ball, bouncing between the air shields, moving forward. Every time the air shield broke, it would form a ripple in the air. Chapter 586. A qualified old soldier would never leave it to chance. The youth had yet to shine, and was already in his twilight years? Sun Jie's face immediately changed. Even the honorable martial alliance, such a devout place, was unable to endure the torture of the devil flame. Shursen was clear that the most important thing was to ensure Master Meng Nan's safety. To Shursen, Sun Zheng was nothing to worry about, and the only thing that could pose a threat to them was Sun Jie and his 500 elites. Did he use some shameful methods? Shursen sat up straight. It is the first time for a person to defeat us alone. Shursen looked at Ah Leng. He was too familiar with all of them, and directly said, Ah Leng, if you have anything to say, just say it. In a dense forest, Shursen's small team was quietly lying in wait. They were getting old. We, the underworld continent's demonic mounts, are destined to die on the battlefield. I am a failed general, and when I was young, I had always been losing. As long as I can still wield my blade, I will fight, no matter how much I am afraid, no matter how much I lose face, no matter how much I am humiliated, no matter how much I lower my voice, I will never give up. If not for Little Fool fainting, he would definitely not dare to act blindly. Little Fool in his form spirit state was his natural enemy. But Tang Tian was a person with pure physical body, and was definitely unable to block the devil flame. The devil flame burned the deepest and most hidden negative desires in a person's heart, and that was why the Honorable Martial Alliance hated him so much. If it was any other time, Shursen would definitely not dare to face Sun Jie, who had 500 elites. But Sun Jie was entangled, so Shursen was not afraid of the 500 elites. Furthermore, Shursen and the rest had just changed their equipment, and their strength had increased greatly, causing him to be more confident. Lung did not dodge, but looked straight into Shursen's eyes and said, "General, are we going to follow that brat from now on?" The fire scythe ghost claw that was infused with the devil flame had a qualitative change in power. But Shursen knew that caves, forests, and aquatic plants were more suitable for concealment. Shursen carefully listened to the scout's report, and as expected, Master Meng Nan was right in front of them. Shursen's heart finally settled down. He did not want the master to be killed right after he had pledged his allegiance. That would be too tragic. Every inch of his skin felt like it was about to be torn apart, and that demonic coldness seeped into the deepest parts of his body. Shursen laughed self-deprecatingly. "I'm old, I don't care about so much. What's the point of saving face?" Of course, when it came to repair skills, doctors were naturally more outstanding. However, the reality was ever-changing. If they did not deal with it in time and something happened, it would be terrible. "General." Many of the soldiers stood up. Lung opened his mouth. He felt regret in his heart. They truly loved and respected Shursen from the bottom of their hearts. Without hesitation, he changed his plans and supported Master Meng Nan. Embarrassed. Shursen's weathered face had a complicated expression. After a long time, he sighed and said, "That guy is right. Humiliation or torture, I had no excuse to retreat. I am the general of a defeated army, a loser. Is there any lack of humiliation? I was just lying to myself before. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, I should not give up. Everyone, get ready. We'll set off in half an hour." That's right, he could not break the devil flame, but why should he? William's last bit of consciousness was hidden in the flames. He looked at Tang Tian calmly. The devil flame was a spirit technique that he created. It could burn anything, but its strongest point was that it could corrode the mind. Fire scythe ghost claw. Lung's face was flushed red. He argued, "I am not trying to harm the master, I just feel that." "But he killed our men." Lung was stubborn. The 45 underworld continent demonic mounts all screamed with all their might. The whimpering sounds were suppressed in their throats. Many of them turned their heads, not wanting others to see their red eyes. The sky filled with fireflies once again, and in between the fireflies there were countless of tiny red sparks. Laughter came out from the surroundings. Lung was the most rash and reckless. He loved to take risks, so when they heard Lung say that the plan was risky, everyone felt that it was funny. Their pride, their faith, their friendship. His mouth was filled with bitterness. He extended his hand out to stop his brothers who wanted to console him, his aged voice resonating in the air. "I wonder, will the trade winds of the underworld continent be like the past, mixed with hope and sunshine?" Tang Tian finally understood what form the true devil flame had. The intense and ice-cold flames seeped into every part of his body. The intense pain, from every part of his body, continuously assaulted Tang Tian. Shursen immediately sat down. After the continuous battles, he was somewhat tired. Beside him, everyone quietly healed their bodies. It was easy to leave behind internal injuries in battle, and if they were not treated in time, the corrosion of the energy would only worsen the injuries. As an old soldier, it was a necessary skill to grasp how to heal one's body. Lung retorted, "That is Sun Jie. As long as Sun Jie is not tied down, then we will be in danger." "General." Lung hesitated for a moment, but still asked, "This plan is too risky." Fight. But when he heard that Sun Jie and Master Meng Nan were fighting one-on-one, he was startled, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Shursen looked around, seeing the wrinkles on everyone's faces, seeing the scars on everyone's body, seeing the pairs of dim and muddy eyes, like withered old firewood lit up by sparks. Everyone stopped. Their gazes turned towards Shursen. Many of their expressions were similar to Lung's. Master Meng Nan had just killed 5 of their brothers, and in the blink of an eye, they had to rely on him, causing them to feel uncomfortable. "Don't forget, we are captives. In other words, at this time, we should be dead. But we are still alive, and have changed our bodies." Shursen said coldly, "Since we have surrendered, then don't be half-hearted, and be unhappy. We do not have the qualifications to be unhappy, we have surrendered, and then plotting against the master? Shursen will not do it. But at that moment, Tang Tian's fighting intent was at its most intense. The pain, not only did it not cause him to retreat, but it made him even more furious. He immediately realized that it was a good opportunity. He suddenly pulled out his blade, his hair and beard standing on end. He roared, "Can you all fight?" Everyone became quiet. We have already lost to this point. What reason do we have to be afraid of losing? We have already lost to this age. Why are we still thinking of giving up? If we are destined to fail, then I want to see the outcome of our failure. Seeing that Lung was about to speak, he cut him off. Don't find excuses, we are all people on the battlefield. Losing is losing, there is no reason or excuse. Relying on his own strength to defeat us fair and square, I am convinced. That's right, 5 of our brothers died in his hands. If he was the one who caused their deaths, even if I have to risk my life, I will take revenge. But killing on the battlefield, there is nothing to say. We are demonic mounts, people destined to die on the battlefield. The devil flame was the strongest killing technique he had. Tang Tian did not stop for even a moment, as though he did not care about William at all, and locked onto Xianxia. His face was filled with a sinister smile, like a burning red iron claw. He brazenly struck out. As long as Tang Tian's state of mind revealed a flaw, the devil flame would take the opportunity to enter, and William would take the chance, and hide inside Tang Tian's state of mind, and quietly control Tang Tian's state of mind. At that time, little fool would not be able to do anything to him. Although we are old, we are not defeated. Tang Tian did not care about William, and directly rushed towards Xianxia. Is this the devil flame? Inexplicably, a surge of hot blood rushed into Shursen's chest. Very quickly, about 30 kilometers ahead, energy was fluctuating intensely, proving that there was a battle going on. Shursen guessed that Master Wang Lin had encountered Xianxia and the rest, and had sent out scouts. To the sacred Saint Galaxy people who knew how to fly from birth, they preferred the sky. Just like their cities, they were usually built in the sky. And usually when marching, the majority of the people liked to hide in the sea of clouds. Suddenly, his thoughts went back to 10 years ago. All of the young faces seemed to be right in front of him. Shursen, who had white hair at his temples, looked around. All of the faces that were no longer young entered his eyes. All of the silent faces that were filled with scars and vicissitudes of life seemed to be recounting the hardships they had gone through. Lung was crying, "General, don't say any more. My hot blood has not even been ignited, and is it going to turn cold?" Shursen wanted to slow down his tone, but his voice was trembling. He thought about the faces that had passed away, thought about the years of war, thought about the many things that had been forgotten. Shursen felt that it was strange and laughed. Since when did Lung feel that the plan is too risky? The laughter disappeared. Everyone knew that Lung was right. Everyone knew how powerful Xianxia was. To be able to control an army at such a young age, and be hailed as the most promising military general in the vast star continent. And his 8th army was the elite army that the Sun family had created with the power of the entire family. Tang Tian laughed, his expression sinister. His reaction was out of William's expectations. "What brat?" Shursen's face darkened. "That is Master Wang Lin." His luck was good. Not long after he came out, he met a small group, and then received the news of Xianxia leading the troops. He was immediately shocked. He was extremely clear of Xianxia's power. If Master Wang Lin and the rest were to rush over, wouldn't they be meeting them head-on? Shursen suddenly roared out hysterically, causing everyone to be startled. They all stood up, wiped their tears, and quietly packed up their equipment. From a logical point of view, everyone felt that the general's plan was too risky. The devil flame was wreaking havoc in Tang Tian's body. "I am old now, I don't have many years left, maybe I won't be able to fight anymore. But I don't want to die on my bed. I will always think about the time in the underworld continent. Oh, that cloud tree, we would drink and boast. Zhu said he wanted to marry 6 wives. Hun said he wanted to buy a street of shops. I will always think about Ada. Before he died, he was trembling in my arms. He said he was afraid. He told me, don't abandon him. I told him I will not abandon him. I will build a big ancestral hall for my brothers. I also told him, you have to protect us from the heavens. Although we are crippled, we are still here. Devil Flame Huh. He was waiting for an opportunity. Although he did not know what he had discovered, but for Sun Jie to fight one-on-one, to Shirsen, was giving up his biggest advantage. And hearing that the elites of the army were watching from the side, a brazen plan formed in Shirsen's mind. I am old, you guys are old too. Are we going to wither before our dreams are realized? Chapter 587. Sun Jie's defense did not have any flaws. Facing Tang Tian's endless attacks, he quickly reacted. The shattered swifts, before they dissipated, would be eaten by the other swifts, greatly reducing the rate of energy consumption. The second light swallow instantly turned into powder under the fist. The fireflies and fiery sand that filled the sky were like a dream. Suddenly, William frowned. He suddenly realized something that was not logical. Tang Tian did not know how powerful William was in the past, but the devil flame was able to make Sun Jie, who was in the realm of silver, feel fear and was extremely powerful. As long as he felt that Tang Tian had the strength to kill those people, it would be fine. The frequency of the vibrations, to Sun Jie, was also extremely easy. But that was using energy. If he did not use energy, he would not be able to do it. William hid in the devil flame, watching the battle closely. Tang Tian's display of talent in battle made him full of praise. Tang Tian, who was in battle, was extremely sharp. He could always think of all sorts of strange fighting methods. For a low-level martial technique like the Great Avalanche, there was nothing special about its core. But there were extremely few people who would use it purely with their body. The reason was very simple. Because their body could not withstand such a high-frequency vibration. Before their fists had even struck the enemy, their body would first collapse. His opponent was a person with a disability, and under the situation of not using any energy and purely relying on the strength of his body to be able to do such a thing, he had never heard of it before. Tang Tian's physical strength was already completely exhausted. The sea of blood in the Gemini furnace was extremely shriveled up and was suppressed to a corner by the sea of energy. What was worse was that Tang Tian was still attacking with all his might. The blood furnace's self-protection instincts were immediately activated. The blood furnace started to revolve crazily and started to absorb everything that could be absorbed. Swallow protection in his hands, compared to the second platoon, was not inferior at all. The flying light swallows dispersed the fireflies and fiery sand. The fiery sand that was dispersed did not drift far, but formed a thick layer of broken aura around the light circle. He carefully recalled the feeling of hitting the light swallows. Something was wrong. The battle became more and more intense. Tang Tian was trying out new fighting methods, while Sun Jie was slowly getting used to Tang Tian's attacks. As soon as he steadied himself, Tang Tian charged forward again. Although Tang Tian's attacks were ferocious, his realm was too low, so it didn't consume too much of his energy. In terms of the amount of energy, Sun Jie had enough confidence. If the battle entered a stalemate, it would be even more advantageous for him. This body was too ferocious. He only wanted this result. Whether he lived or died, whether he dissipated or existed, no matter who did it, no matter what happened to the world, he only wanted this result. But how could that fellow be so sure that he would be able to complete his plan before the devil flame corroded him? The success of the first punch allowed Tang Tian to quickly grasp the knack of the technique. The frequency of the second punch sharply increased. In this blurry dream, Tang Tian stepped through the air and raised his fist high. His entire body was like a stretched bowstring as he punched the circle of light. Could it be that he had found a way to deal with him? A few light swallows nimbly blocked Tang Tian's fist. However, it was already too late. The world is so quiet, Tang Tian sighed, and completely ignored his own roars that never stopped. His body and mind seemed to be separated. Tang Tian felt that his thoughts were somewhat detached. For example, the devil flame. Even William himself was unable to predict it. He believed that Tang Tian did not know either. Hey, Red Devil, goodbye. Tang Tian continued to change his martial techniques: Flash Fist, Great Avalanche, Heavenly Dragon Energy. When the light swallows and the opponent's fist came into contact, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. The opponent's fist actually contained a shockingly high frequency of vibrations. In a short moment, it had over 200 vibrations and directly destroyed the light swallows. And did he not think of the consequences of doing so? After absorbing the devil flame, what kind of changes would it bring to his body? It was just that Crazy Tang had already set his mind to destroy him no matter what. He was truly ruthless and decisive. To destroy the enemy, he did not even leave a path of retreat for himself. The devil flame that had dispersed into every corner of Tang Tian's body, to the current blood furnace, was undoubtedly a great tonic. As a military general, he had very few chances to fight alone, and it was rare for him to meet such an interesting opponent. To be able to sharpen his own strength, it was not a wasted trip. Tang Tian's face became even more distorted. He continuously inhaled cold air. His plan had finally succeeded, but in his eyes, beneath the burning fighting intent, was a bone-chilling cold indifference. Of course, what made William even more surprised was Tang Tian's body. It was truly a perfect body. He dared to believe that if Gui Wu saw this body, he would also be moved and would take action to snatch it. Why did Tang Tian ignore him? He could feel the Ghost King blazing firefly's energy in the light swallows. Could it be the so-called energy transformation was actually the combustion of energy? And his Ghost King blazing firefly was just that the combustion was not sufficient? And different from the other Blood Meridian saints, Tang Tian's outer appearance did not have any changes. William was extremely knowledgeable and had long made a few guesses about the situation. The light swallow that was struck by the fist suddenly shattered like an avalanche and disappeared in the air. Sun Jie's eyes were wide open, his face filled with disbelief. Impossible! William squinted his eyes. He was looking forward to it. Even if he was in Tang Tian's position, he would not be able to think of any way to break out of the situation. Tang Tian treated him like air and completely ignored his existence. William regained his composure. He admired Crazy Tang even more. He did not care about death. He did not care about his reputation. He did not care about Tang Tian's hatred and disgust towards him. Tang Tian, who was flying backwards, his toes pointed in the air, bang bang bang, he continuously stepped on a few air shields before he stabilized himself. Bang! After flying for over 10 m, Tang Tian finally recovered. He continuously stepped on adaptive pole and finally stabilized himself. His eyes were filled with splendor. Was this the energy after energy transformation? Godlike young lad, don't disappoint me. Sun Jie was not surprised that Yen who blocked the opponent's fist. He was a silver saint. If his energy barrier was so easily broken, that would be a joke. Furthermore, he was an energy handicap. That fist did not have any energy at all. Although Tang Tian was still sent flying, but his heart was filled with joy. The Great Avalanche, that purely used his physical body, was much more powerful than his Great Bone Snow. He did not understand why, as long as it was useful. Sun Jie was surprised. He could see that Tang Tian was already at the end of his rope. As time passed, the opponent's chances of winning were getting smaller, but why was he still attacking so crazily without caring about anything? The energy barrier was the most commonly used martial technique, and Sun Jie was definitely outstanding. Tang Tian once again stepped on the air. His speed was as fast as lightning, full of impact. He was inspired by the Fire Scythe Ghost Claw, since he did not rely on his physical body strength and was able to achieve Fire Scythe Ghost Claw. Then other martial techniques could also be achieved. Sun Jie checked the energy in his body, and his heart calmed down. This thought suddenly popped out. He was deep in thought, but without hesitation he rushed forward. But he had too many ideas in his heart to verify. It was the best chance to fight. Stepping on the air, he advanced in a zigzag line. Like lightning, the strong wind swept past Tang Tian's face, but it was unable to cool down his boiling body. For example, Great Avalanche. The martial techniques that he had trained in before, in his hands, were constantly changing, and he constantly had new discoveries. In the past, he thought that the essence of these martial techniques was the use of energy, but now that he was using his physical body strength, he was able to reinterpret these martial techniques, and he was shocked to discover that the power of the martial techniques did not decrease, but instead increased. All of the devil flame in Tang Tian's body was swept clean, all absorbed into his blood vessels. Every blood vessel burst open, the flames flowed, and Tang Tian's entire body seemed to be covered with red-hot steel bars. Sun Jie stared at Tang Tian in a daze. How did he do it? In terms of danger, he far surpassed Sun Jie, and William believed that Tang Tian would not be able to see it. Never underestimate the crazy Tang Tian in battle. The Tang Tian in battle had a beast-like intuition towards danger, and this was something that even William could not compare to. The evolution of Tang Tian's body did not rely on energy, it strengthened the power of the physique. Could the pure power of the physique be strengthened to such a shocking degree? In truth, William understood. Sun Jie immediately activated his energy barrier. He could sense the danger, especially the bright red fiery sand. The aura it emitted was foreign and dangerous. It was obviously a power that he could not comprehend. He was not anxious to counterattack. The opponent's techniques were constantly changing, it was endless, and it opened Sun Jie's eyes. Towards an unknown martial technique, Sun Jie was extremely cautious, but he was looking forward to it. Such an opportunity did not come by often. The surging energy suddenly exploded, and Tang Tian felt as though he was struck by a wild beast. He groaned, and was unable to react in time, and was sent flying like a ball. William could feel the strong suction force, and could not help but laugh bitterly. He did not expect that Tang Tian would actually think of such an idea. It was a good idea. William's strand of consciousness could only exist in the devil flame, and before it corroded Tang Tian's consciousness, he would let the blood furnace absorb the devil flame, and his consciousness and the devil flame would be digested and absorbed by the blood furnace. His physical strength was quickly depleting, although his current physical body was tyrannical, but clashing with the Silver Saint consumed an astonishing amount of energy, and very quickly he was perspiring profusely and gasping for breath. White fireflies and red fiery sand danced in the sky. And at that moment, William's strand of consciousness fluctuated intensely. He finally understood Tang Tian's intention. William was calmly pulled into the blood, and in the boiling hot blood his strand of consciousness quickly melted, and before it completely melted, he laughed at himself. Maybe he was a good nourishment. Bang bang bang. But he did not stop, and continued to attack in a berserk manner. He suddenly realized that there was a huge deviation in his understanding back then. The world was quiet. Tang Tian's distorted face released unconsciously roars, as though only by doing that could he alleviate the pain of the devil flame. His gaze never left Sun Jie for a moment. I wish you luck. The fireflies and fiery sand sealed the battlefield. Both parties clashed intensely. The blood vessels on Tang Tian's body formed a bottomless black hole, crazily absorbing the devil flame. All the devil flame was being absorbed into the blood. Sun Jie's senses were not wrong. Tang Tian was using Great Avalanche. Suddenly, Sun Jie's gaze turned sluggish. Was another punch. William was truly a genius. Chapter 588. Everyone who reacted immediately followed the adjutant and flew towards the intense battle in the sky. A few of the weaker soldiers did not even have the time to make a sound, and fell down from the sky. The adjutant's exclamation caused the troops to be in an uproar. All of the soldiers' faces changed. The might of the Empyrean ice tree spear caused everyone to change. It was the most feared weapon of the blue dwarves. An intense fear enveloped his entire body. The enemy suddenly became a stranger. There was nothing worse than that. The explosive sound caused him to be extremely focused. He could not care about anything else, and only knew how to crazily wave the short sword in his hand. The light swallows flying around Sun Jie continued to be destroyed. In the blink of an eye, the number of light swallows decreased. His yen protection became sparse. The shattered auras of the light swallows transformed into mist. Am I emitting smoke? Tang Tian was clear of the power of an army. Furthermore, Sun Jie was an outstanding military general. Kakaka. The sea of blood released a strong pressure, pushing the sea of energy to a corner, compressing it into a small ball. Sun Jie's adjutant saw that the situation was bad, and without caring about anything else, he shouted, "Support Master!" Just at that moment, the bronze boxes that flew in front of them all shattered. If not for the fact that Tang Tian's appearance was completely unrelated to the blue dwarves, they would have thought that Tang Tian was a blue dwarf. After absorbing the devil flame, his zero-energy body finally had a qualitative leap. The gray flames was the power of the zero-energy body. It was too timely. His speed could not catch up to the enemy. That meant that he had lost the initiative, which meant that he was unable to get rid of the enemy and return to the formation. His heart was filled with regret. He originally thought that he would win the battle, but he had actually fallen into such a desperate situation. The situation did not allow him to hesitate. He clenched his teeth and shouted, "Frontline defense!" Tang Tian felt extreme pain. Every blood vessel in his body felt as though they were about to explode, and at the same time, there was an intense burning sensation. The gray flames were faint, revolving around Tang Tian's fist, and did not dissipate. Tang Tian immediately decided to delay the enemy. Most importantly, he could not let Sun Jie and his subordinates meet up. Once Sun Jie and his army converged, then he and Shursen's group would definitely not be a match for them. The moment the avarice black devil disappeared, Tang Tian's body shook, and the bulging veins quickly dissipated. The fresh blood in the blood furnace started to flow along his blood vessels, flowing into every corner of Tang Tian's body. This was his spoil of war from the blue sea of light. The blue dwarves used it as a javelin, and Tang Tian was very clear about its power. Even Ling Su was caught off guard and was tricked. All of the Empyrean ice tree branches shattered. The blue energy, like a cold wave, spread across half of the team. The strange energy seeped into their bodies. What was that? Apart from the color of the sea of blood becoming brighter, there seemed to be no other changes. Dozens of rays of blue light entered the group. How could Tang Tian not notice such a big movement? His mood instantly became extremely terrible. Tang Tian decided to name it Null Flames. He had never seen such a weird flame before. The null flames were neither hot nor cold, and if any objects without energy touched it, they would not have any reaction. It only had an astonishing destructive power towards energy, and any energy that touched it would instantly be destroyed. The reason why he was able to pierce through the Swallow Protection's outer layer of defense so easily was because of the null flame's destructive effect towards energy. Tang Tian's mind suddenly popped out with such a ridiculous thought. He was amused by himself. He wanted to smile, but it was uglier than crying. The adjutant exclaimed out in shock. His face changed. Only blue dwarves had Empyrean ice tree spears, and only high-level blue dwarves had them. How could he have so many Empyrean ice tree spears? The wooden chest suddenly shattered, and the things inside, like a black rainstorm, shot towards them. What made him even more ecstatic was the gray flames coiling around his fist. Sun Jie was scared out of his wits. He never thought that Tang Tian would suddenly become so powerful. As long as he had a bit more time. The wooden chest that was the size of a table was raised up high by Tang Tian, and fiercely thrown towards the incoming group of people. The adjutant's eyes congealed, and he subconsciously slowed down. The opponent's speed suddenly became extremely fast, and Sun Jie suddenly realized that he could not keep up with the opponent's speed. Tang Tian's heart was filled with unwillingness, but he knew that if he was surrounded by the 400 elites, even if he had just broken through, he would die here. But the surprise that Tang Tian had given them was not over. Bang. But it is rather interesting. This is. Sun Jie was cautious and did not attack. The opponent's appearance was too terrifying, and he did not know what had happened to him. He was not too worried. Even if the opponent had broken through, he would definitely not be able to become a silver saint from energy barrier. For the sake of delaying these people, why would Tang Tian hold back? With the Empyrean ice tree branches, a wooden chest appeared in Tang Tian's hands. Bang! The purified devil flame was continuously being absorbed by the sea of blood, causing the sea of blood to become even brighter, but the temperature quickly dropped, and the sea of blood once again became calm. Black Demon of Desire. The black mist rumbled, roaring incessantly, they rapidly shrunk and in the next moment, transformed into a strange-looking demon, standing there coldly. Its skinny body was formed from countless of tiny greedy dark worms. The greedy dark worms did not have a physical body and were a part of the desire law. Empyrean Ice Tree Spear. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. Every time the sea of blood swallowed the flames, it would spit out black fragments. In the blink of the eye, the black fragments would cover the entire sea of blood, transforming into an endless black mist. These black fragments were the laws contained in the devil flame, representing the laws of the dark side of desire. Tang Tian noticed Sun Jie's panic at the first moment, and without hesitation, he attacked again. He clenched his teeth, not being stingy with the energy in his body. The short sword in his hand continued to dance. Light swallows after light swallows flew out from the blade and entered the circle of light. The potential that burst forth from the moment of life and death allowed him to break through his limits. The light swallows entered the circle of light like rain. A blue light blossomed from Tang Tian's hands. Damn it! Taking a deep breath, Tang Tian's hands suddenly had a bunch of blue tree branches. A cold light aura suddenly surged out from the small bronze box. Damn it! Just give me a little more time, just a little more time, and Sun Jie will not be able to hold on. He acutely sensed that the frequency at which Sun Jie waved the short sword was decreasing, proving that the energy in his body was being consumed to the limit. Not right, his face changed, the intense sense of danger caused all the hairs on his body to stand. A fist had suddenly appeared in front of him. But now, the zero-energy body's ability had finally appeared. If he was hit by that fist, his brain would have been smashed like a watermelon. But in the dense and clear explosion, Tang Tian was like a zigzagging lightning. Before the ripples in the air had even spread out, he had already appeared in front of Sun Jie. How is that possible? He completely did not know how the opponent broke through the outer layer of the yen protection. His yen protection did not have any blind spots. Every light swallow's judgment of the attack was extremely accurate. The fear of death made Sun Jie throw away all the distracting thoughts and frantically blocked Tang Tian's attack. The adjutant's face changed and anxiously reminded, "Be careful." But it was already too late. They were worried about their master's life, and all of them sprinted forward at full speed. And the ice tree branches that Tang Tian had thrown out, he used all his strength. He felt that he had never felt so powerful before. Tang Tian was extremely happy at the moment. The surging power filled his entire body. He felt that his body was like an ocean. With every move he made, he had the power to topple the mountains and overturn the seas. The explosions that sounded like frying beans continued to sound out from Tang Tian's body. Tang Tian's body was trembling like a sieve. The warm flow dispersed into his 4 limbs and 5 bones. His entire body felt as though it was wrapped in warm seawater. It was extremely comfortable. This was the true reason why the devil flame was so strong. The avarice black devil was scattered in the devil flame. As long as any of the avarice dark worms entered the opponent's mind, it would either be invisible or incinerated. He could feel that his body was undergoing an astonishing change. His bones had become even more compact and sturdy. His muscles had become even more tenacious and firm, filled with explosive power. Even his skin had become like metal paper. From the looks of it, Tang Tian did not seem to have any changes. Tang Tian clenched his teeth. He was about to retreat, but suddenly from the corner of his eyes, he saw a small black dot in the distance. He was startled, and immediately became ecstatic. It was the underworld system demonic mounts led by Shursin. With a sudden roar, Tang Tian gathered all the strength in his body and threw out the ice tree branches in his hands. Inside the Gemini furnace, the sea of blood was boundless, churning and roaring, the bewitching red gigantic waves, swallowing and spitting out flames. The sky full of fireflies and fiery sand, all dissipated, and Tang Tian's figure was revealed to everyone. Sun Jie felt that he did not come for nothing, although he was energy retarded, but he had all sorts of methods, causing him to widen his horizons. Suddenly, his pupils constricted. Tang Tian, who was opposite him, had smiled at him, revealing his snow-white teeth. The light aura from the 3 light swallows was like a light mist, hitting his face, causing Sun Jie to be at a loss. This guy. What relationship does he have with the blue dwarves? The soldiers in front all lit up their energy shields, preparing to defend against the attack. The opponent's fist was less than half a meter away from his face, and was blocked by the 3 light swallows. Any blood meridian would have its own unique ability, and when the blood meridian evolved to a certain realm, these abilities would be unlocked. Tang Tian's zero energy body had never displayed any special abilities. Other than his body becoming stronger, there did not seem to be any other benefits. But the blue dwarves would never sell the Empyrean ice tree spears. Countless of grandmasters were curious about the legendary sharp weapon, but the market was unable to buy the Empyrean ice tree spears. Pa pa pa. The black devil of greed melted like a snow puppet. But a pity, it met the blood furnace, which only had the purest power of blood meridians, and only the laws that could be assimilated into the blood meridians would it choose. The seemingly undying black devil of greed, facing the pure power of the physique, was unable to resist at all, and was smashed into pieces. The fist struck one of the light swallows. Bang, the light swallows were smashed into pieces. His pupils dilated, he could not believe it, and in that moment he actually lost his reaction. Only then did the adjutants see clearly that what was flying towards them were all square bronze boxes. Chapter 589. The obstructions in their vision were swept away. Shursen knew that they had already broken through the enemy's formation. At that moment, Tang Tian, who could not move his hands, directly threw out a chest. The adjutant's eyes suddenly constricted. Shursen's small team was in an assault formation. Sun Jie became more and more desperate. The opponent seemed to never tire. The opponent's fists were getting heavier and heavier, and the strange gray flames made him feel extreme danger. Bang! The dragon head had just broken through the formation, but the dragon body was still in the formation, and with the explosion, it immediately cleared out a wide empty space in the middle of the formation. From the moment Shursen started his assault, Tang Tian placed all of his attention on Sun Jie, who was at the end of his rope. Tang Tian, who had just broken through, was brimming with boundless power. The comrades at the front suddenly lost control. The soldiers behind were too close, and were unable to dodge in time. They were shocked and immediately slowed down. The 8th Army elites, who did not have any defense, were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Their screams, curses and screams were all swallowed by the torrent. They did not have any intention of slowing down. The distance between them was only 50 m. With such a short distance, they could not change directions in time. His body froze, the expression on his face froze. Chi. A few of them were already thinking that after the battle ended and returned to the camp, they would have another topic to talk about. They were filled with anticipation. The master was like a god in their hearts. When the time comes, everyone will definitely have an intense discussion. When Shursen's troops completed breaking through his formation, Sun Jie's heart finally collapsed. Kill! When Shursen appeared from the back, Sun Zheng and the rest cheered. Law fragments. The cold light auras were not considered strong, and many of them were as thin as hair. The thick and sturdy energy barriers that could defend against the attacks of armies, in front of the seemingly weak and powerless light auras, were useless. The master was in imminent danger, and could be defeated at any time, causing him to be extremely anxious. The 8th Army was personally created by Sun Jie, and more than half of the soldiers had countless connections with the Sun family. To them, Shursen had no reason to betray them, so when Shursen appeared again, Sun Zheng and the rest immediately saw him as their savior. Shursen's temper was bad and stubborn, but after all, he was an old soldier and fought ferociously. The old men beside him were like him. Be careful! The originally orderly formation was now in chaos. If something happened to His Excellency, as long as he met up with the Lord, the other party would definitely die. He screamed hysterically, "Who the hell are you?" If we were to say that Tang Tian's origin mark box was like an assassin's dagger, quietly reaping lives, then Shursen's underworld continent demonic mount's attack was like a heavy battering ram filled with power. The soldiers at the very front opened up their energy shields and shouted as they charged forward. Their expressions were that of eagerness. From their point of view, their master had only messed up this time. The crisscrossing rays of light were like soundless but deadly blades that instantly pierced into the formation. The dazzling ball of light enveloped the entire team. The torrent of blade auras followed the slash of the evening snow sea, in Xianxia's hand, surging out. Each saber gleam was only the size of a palm, but the torrent of this slash was made up of 600 saber gleams. Like a thin blade scratching a white paper. There was no blood splattering, no screams of anguish. In silence, many people's bodies had many hair-thin bloodstains. Dragonfish transformation. What happened? Explode. All the hair-thin light auras were pure laws, although they were just fragments of laws, but laws were laws, and their might was at that moment. Men and horses fell, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. A cold intent suddenly surged up from his back, all the hairs on his body stood, his face changed, enemy attack. The blade aura torrent slashed out a large gap. Xianxia was clear that the army was already on the verge of collapse. As long as he gave them a fatal blow, they would completely collapse. Alright, the master rarely messes up, even if something happens occasionally, it is not a big deal. Sun Zheng and the rest cheers had numbed the people of the 8th Army. They thought that their brother army had come to support them, and heaved a sigh of relief. The sudden attack had caused their morale to drop to the lowest point, and now that they had reinforcements, it caused their morale to rise. The distance between the two parties quickly closed up. The hair-thin light auras were like willow leaves blown by the wind, landing on the energy barrier at the front. The 500 men that came with Sun Jie were all elites selected from the 8th Army. All of them were powerful and experienced in battles. Facing the cold light auras, they were not afraid, the light auras were not strong, and the energy undulations were close to non-existent. The 300 origin mark boxes had caused over 70 casualties. The ancient weapon had unleashed an astonishing might. The adjutant's pupils dilated, the surging blade auras occupied every corner of his vision. He was at a loss, his mind blank. The origin mark boxes were created by Tang Tian the last time he was in ancient Cold City. At that time, he was prepared to use them against other saints, but after Bing used the single-valve stronghold to solve the problem, the origin mark boxes had always been lying in Tang Tian's Aquarius vase. After that, Tang Tian found a pile of remnant pieces of spirit treasures in the warehouse. How could crazy Tang sit back and watch it go to waste? He wanted to use them all as origin mark boxes. Xianxia, who was at the head of the dragon, gently waved the evening snow ocean, causing the light screen to distort. Like a broom, it struck the adjutant who was in a daze, causing him to spit out blood and fly out. Unlike the assistant who was burning with anxiety, the others weren't too worried. The distance between the two sides was less than 500 zhang, and a full sprint would only take a blink of an eye. They did not slow down at all. Instead, they charged forward. Their formation spread out. The soldiers on both sides spread out, while the soldiers at the back spread out. They were prepared to outflank the enemy. The adjutant was also stunned by the scene in front of him. He had experienced many battles, but he had never seen such a terrifying scene. The soldiers who had lost their lives fell to the ground, but the blood mist in the air did not dissipate. The pungent smell of blood made this place look like a battlefield of Azura. The positions of the underworld continent's demonic mounts changed. The light aura that enveloped the entire group also changed, transforming into a light dragon that rushed into the formation through the gap. Curses continuously sounded out, and the troops were in chaos. The sudden chaos at the front caused the soldiers at the back to loudly curse. All of a sudden, all the cursing stopped abruptly. The surging waves suddenly stopped. The aide-de-camp's mind trembled. The 8th Army, Sun family. I will definitely not be able to escape from the military law. In terms of strength, they had the absolute advantage. As long as they didn't make any fatal mistakes, there wouldn't be too much of a problem. The light chance caused everyone's mind to tremble in the midst of the chaos. A stern look flashed past Xianxia's eyes. Evening snow ocean was placed in front of his nose, and he bellowed. How can an energy barrier be so strong? Kill. Tang Tian had a total of 3 boxes of origin mark boxes in his hands. and each box contained a total of 300 origin mark boxes. 300 origin mark boxes suddenly exploded. I can't change direction in time. Charge. Before he lost consciousness, he thought about the gray flames lingering around the opponent's fist. What is that? We are on the same side. We are on the same side. That is Xianxia. It's Xianxia. Countless of blood pillars suddenly shot out from the front of the troops. The blood pillars crisscrossed. The blood that was sprayed high into the sky was blown into a blood mist by the wind, pervading the entire army. All of the soldiers who were covered in blood had no signs of life and fell down like rain. Someone besides Sun Zheng shouted, although Xianxia had disappeared for a few days, and the armor on his body seemed to have changed, but Sun Zheng and the rest could still recognize Xianxia. No one would have thought that Xianxia would betray them. In name, Xianxia was the commander of the 36th Army, although everyone did not take him seriously, but the commander position in name was not something that anyone could obtain. The dragon-shaped light screens suddenly exploded into countless of irregular blade auras. Mixed with the destructive power of the air wave, they flew out in all directions. The dragon-shaped light screen formed from the energy of the 46 men contained a surprising amount of power. The forward momentum was like a thunderbolt. Any soldiers that were swept by the light screen would spit out blood as they screamed and flew out fiercely. Everyone was shocked by the terrifying scene at the front of the troops. There were only a few people left. Because they were lucky, they did not even get hit by an origin mark box. But all of their faces were filled with shock, their lips trembled, their faces were as white as paper. They had already lost their last bit of fighting spirit. If it was any other time, how could a weak army like the 36th Army support them? They would definitely scoff at it, they would not care, but at the moment, they had just experienced a cruel and heavy injury. Any bit of support would make them feel better. Tang Tian's attacks were like a torrential downpour, and the number of light swallows around Sun Jie became lesser and lesser. The adjutant's heart dropped. He did not feel any uneasy energy undulations and shouted, "Rush over." Xianxia's eyes were ice cold, without any warmth. His white and short beard was like steel wire, the wrinkles that had been polished by wind and frost. His expression was stern and stern. The ice-blue transparent evening snow ocean in his hand suddenly slashed downwards. A fist struck his back, and at the same time, a cold intent drilled into his body. The underworld continent's demonic mounts did not slow down, and calmly rushed out of the enemy's formation. Suddenly, someone screamed out in panic, "Enemy attack! There are enemies behind us!" 600 blade auras from the back of the troops rushed into the formation without any fancy moves. They had never seen such bronze boxes before, and thought that it was a mechanical technique from the gold continent. They knew that the crux of the battle was time, and the bronze boxes were just used by the enemy to disrupt them. The adjutant shuddered and hurriedly turned his head to look back. A fully armed squad had silently appeared behind them at an unknown time, and was only 1,000 feet away from them. The 45 underworld continent demonic mounts behind him roared in unison, their black wind blades slashing out. "No matter what, we cannot let him escape." Before he finished speaking, Xianxia's small team all raised the black wind blades in their hands. Chapter 590. Tang Tian was angered by them. "I just wanted to ask, do you guys have any use for this thing?" Tang Tian had an experienced expression as he told Xianxia, "It is rather useful." The ice-blue tree branch was sparkling and translucent, like a blue crystal. Tang Tian carried Sun Jie's corpse and landed on the ground. He was filled with passion for battle, but towards a one-sided massacre, he did not have much interest. Sun Jie was already the youngest silver saint in the vast star continent, and Master Meng Nan, who was even younger than Sun Jie, was a monstrous existence. Why do we have to save? Tang Tian was puzzled. Xianxia and the rest only had 46 men, and their disadvantage in numbers was revealed at this time. Thinking about that, their spirits were roused, and they ran for their lives. They were all elites, and had their own ways to deal with the enemy's pursuit. They all tacitly split up and ran in all directions. As for which direction the enemy would choose, it was up to the heavens. What kind of personality do these people have? Strenuous, tangled up, it's too annoying. I must find a time to beat all of you up. Origin mark box? Tang Tian did not expect Shursen to fancy it, and immediately became pleased. It was something that he had spent a lot of effort to create, and was lying in the corner of the Aquarius. To have someone fancy it, he was extremely happy, and without hesitation, he threw a wooden box to Shursen. Here, everyone can have a few. Shursen recovered from the shock. Such a high-quality item, to be able to personally witness it, was already rare. He was speechless at the master's rather useful, the Azure Ice Spear. How could it not be useful? The other underworld continent demonic mounts all looked at Shursen with hidden bitterness. They could not wait to snatch the wooden box from Shursen's hands. Their boss was truly honest, and still wanted to push it back. The other box was not sold, and Tang Tian was unhappy. He did not notice their pained expressions, and suddenly slapped his forehead. That's right, this thing is rather useful. Although Sun Jie was not known for his bravery, but he was still a silver saint, and died in the hands of the master. In the entire battle, the master did not use any tricks, and killed Sun Jie openly. That was enough to prove the master's strength, the Silver Saint realm. When he noticed the remaining soldiers fleeing, he shouted to Shursen, "Don't chase them." Ice and Empyrean ice tree spears. They had never heard of such a ferocious elite, and they were even hiding in the 36th army? Isn't that a weak army? Swoosh, the underworld continent's demonic mounts by the side looked over, wishing that their boss could beat them up. 2 chests, that meant that each of them had at least 12, with 12 such killing weapons. They dared to kill their way into the vast star continent. The might of the origin mark box had shocked him. If they were to encounter it, he did not have the confidence to retreat. Could it be the gold continent's newest invention? If he were to stay any longer with this bunch of people who were not straightforward, he would be angered to death. Tang Tian angrily turned around and left. He took out an Empyrean tree branch. Everyone was shocked by Tang Tian's anger. Tang Tian had already established his prestige in this battle. Everyone shouted in unison, "It worked! To be entangled with you bunch of people, how can I not think things through?" Shursen seemed to have awoken from a dream. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He shook his head. "1 chest is enough, it's enough. This chest has 300 of them. The origin mark box is very simple to use. You just have to throw it out. Inside it are fragments of laws, and every box has different laws, but the might is all about the same, but it took me a lot of effort." Tang Tian said happily. Seeing that Shursen did not speak, Tang Tian immediately became anxious. "It is truly useful. If you don't believe me, you can try it." The demonic mounts were completely speechless. Wasn't that obvious? How could the Empyrean ice tree spears be useless? Who would dare say that the Empyrean ice tree spears were useless? Wasn't it hard to find 1 spear in the market? Even if they were to sell all of them, they would not be able to exchange for 1, so how could such a thing be useless? Awkward silence. The bundles of Empyrean ice tree branches smashed onto the ground, causing dust to fly up. The clear and crisp sound of the Empyrean ice tree branches hitting the ground made it seem as though time had stopped. Shursen's gaze was stunned. He stammered, "Ice, Empyrean ice tree spear." Shursen was dumbstruck. The power of the item was so strong, it must be extremely expensive. He only wanted to ask Tang Tian for a few, but who knew that Tang Tian would actually throw him a chest? Who exactly are these old fellows? A bundle that was half the height of a human. And a chest. The demonic mounts by the side all had faces of pain. Some of them were pulling their hair, some of them were covering their faces, some of them were slapping their heads. Which nerve did their boss go wrong? Thinking about the origin mark box that was missing by half, their hearts ached. In this day and age, regardless of what it was, as long as it was related to laws, it would be extremely expensive. After understanding what an origin mark box was, Shursen felt that the wooden chest in his hands was extremely heavy. Everyone's mouths were wide open. They looked at the bundle of Empyrean ice tree branches in front of them in a daze. Their breathing stopped. Their thoughts stopped. Tang Tian scolded in his heart, his face was filled with anger. He immediately took out a bundle of Empyrean ice tree branches from his silver Aquarius cabinet, and fiercely threw it on the ground. "Split it among yourselves." This battle could be said to be fought to his heart's content. The might of the new equipment was undoubtedly displayed in this battle. If it was in the past, to achieve such an impressive result, their casualties would definitely be more than half. Hearing that Xianxia stopped his pursuit, the number of survivors was extremely few, only a few tens of them. The underworld continent's demonic mounts respected the strong the most. Xianxia's subordinates had personally witnessed the battle, and were completely convinced by Tang Tian. Xianxia's mouth could not help but reveal a smile. These brothers had followed him for so many years, and he did not wish for them to have any grudges. Laws. And in this battle, Xianxia finally understood how powerful Master Meng Nan was. Plop plop, everyone's legs turned soft like noodles. They fell to the ground on their butts, their faces filled with fear. Regardless of whether it was the grasp of timing, the usage of attack methods, or the energy synchronization rate, they had all reached an astonishing level. "The future is long, Master. Raising an army costs a lot." Xianxia advised earnestly. He was used to being poor, and knew that it was not easy. If not for their equipment being so poor in the past, their losses would not have been so high. In the legends, the blue dwarves had the strongest weapon, the blue ice spear. It was the symbol of a high-level blue dwarf, and was the symbol of the blue dwarf's status and identity, a top-quality spear that was hard to find in the market. For the first time, Xianxia experienced the benefits of hugging onto a thick thigh. He looked at Sun Jie, who was in Master Meng Nan's hands. A look of pity flashed past his eyes. Such an outstanding military general did not die on the battlefield, but died in a one-on-one battle. It was truly a pity. Sun Jie's death became the last straw that broke the camel's back. The entire battlefield completely collapsed, although there were still some officers who tried to organize the soldiers, but Xianxia's underworld continent's demonic mounts attacks, always at the crucial moment, smashed their plans. After a few more officers were killed, no one else dared to do such foolish things anymore. The successive situations caused the already somewhat irritable Tang Tian to be completely enraged. "Is there any use?" This conclusion caused Xianxia to be shocked. If it was used properly, it would definitely be a sharp weapon. Similarly, the underworld continent's demonic mounts were also speechless. A few of them looked at Tang Tian in anger. Was Master Meng Nan mocking them? "Enough, enough." Xianxia nodded his head foolishly. Why do I feel so weak in my legs? It seems like the sky is spinning." "Master, can you give this subordinate one of the bronze boxes?" The soldiers of the 8th Army who were still alive all had fear in their eyes. The opponent only had 46 men, but they were completely defeated. Many of them were filled with grief and indignation. If the master was still here, they would definitely be able to kill the opponent. But they also knew that the opponent was extremely strong, far stronger than they had imagined. "Is it really enough?" Tang Tian advised patiently. "I have a lot of these things." A few of the quick-witted people thought that Xianxia might be a powerhouse that had intentionally planted a spy in the vast star continent. That seemed to be the most logical explanation. If they were to spread this news, they should be able to redeem themselves. He caught it clumsily. His mind was still in a daze. Happiness came too suddenly. "Unless..." Tang Tian waved his hand. "It's fine, although I do not have much money, but I still have a lot of these things. I still have a box. Do you want it?" Xianxia was an honest man. Upon hearing that, he became even more anxious. Such an expensive item, if he wasted it, he would definitely not be able to forgive himself. He did not know how to reject the master. He was anxious. His face flushed red. He shook his head, and subconsciously said, "I won't try, I won't try. I definitely won't try." Xianxia quivered and immediately said, "Master, we don't need so much. Such expensive things should be used sparingly." At that moment, the demonic mounts who were extremely envious were also dumbstruck. They were all veterans in the army, and had dealt with equipment countless of times, and knew what was good and what was expensive. They were extremely clear. These things were definitely not cheap. One box was enough to shock them, and hearing that the master said he still had another box. If it was an ordinary army, even if they did not have the master to lead them, it would be a fool's dream to think that 40-odd people could shake them. Even the other two famous armies in the vast star continent would not be able to do that. One of the demonic mounts could not take it anymore and advised, "Master, we have naturally heard of the might of these Empyrean ice tree spears. If we were to use them to experiment, it would be too much of a waste. 300, they did not even have 50 people, so each of them could at least have 6. Such a huge killing weapon. For each of them to carry 6, everyone immediately felt that their backs were as hard as steel. Everyone looked at the wooden box in Xianxia's hands, their eyes blazing with passion. Oh my God, could it be that we have truly hugged onto a golden thigh this time? The battle had already ended, other than the few that escaped. Sun Zheng and his group were all captured alive. Compared to the elites of the 8th Army, the weaklings of the 36th Army were lacking in terms of escaping. When a few underworld continent demonic mounts appeared in front of them, they immediately chose to surrender. The surrounding underworld continent demonic mounts whose faces were filled with pain froze. All of their gazes were fixated on the Empyrean ice tree branches in Tang Tian's hands and could not move away. One bundle. Chapter 591. Really? Tang Tian asked again. Bing scolded mercilessly. In front of him, Wang Xian, Shi Yong and the rest lowered their heads like obedient students. They were not the least bit unconvinced. Master Bing was a famed general, and to be able to receive their scolding, it was a supreme honor. All of them replied at once, causing Bing to have the urge to facepalm, as expected of a motley crew. But whatever goes into the pot, Bing did not ask for much, and impatiently waved his hand, "Go!" From now on. Tang Tian, who felt that he had successfully proven that he did not have money, was in a good mood. One must know, to convince all of them, the difficulty was definitely higher than a battlefield. Tang Tian was already lazy to speak. Bang! He threw out an Empyrean ice tree branches, half the height of a person. Bang! He threw out another Empyrean ice tree branches, half the height of a person. The Shang continent did not suffer any damage, causing Wang Xian and the rest to heave a sigh of relief. Master cannot prove it. Shizhen had a "I am calm, please be calm" expression on his face. After being stunned for a few minutes, Shizhen mechanically turned his face, revealing an expression that was uglier than crying. "Master, I am not sure now whether they are worth money or not." Bullshit. This training plan is a pile of bullshit. Tang Tian was completely speechless. He stared at Shizhen, unable to speak for a long time. So Tang Tian, who had won the war, was naturally happy. Bing waved his hand, his killing intent soaring. 32% synchronization rate, is that a joke? Master, this does not require much money. The current market for underworld continent demonic mounts is not high. They are very cheap, 2 million cloud coins. We can definitely recruit one. This subordinate knows where to recruit real demonic mounts. We just need to recruit 60 more, no, 50 more, even 30 will do. After a period of time, our fighting strength will definitely. Shizhen advised bitterly. Shizhen had already regained his senses. He was used to being poor, and suddenly being rich made him feel uncomfortable. Now that he had returned to the starting point, he felt an indescribable sense of relief. But everyone knew, the commotion this time was too big, and the vast star continent would definitely not let it go. The attack that followed would definitely be extremely fierce, and everyone was filled with worry. Worry was worry, but at this point, there was no room for retreat. Conscripting commoners, 10 out of 10 returned to 1. Now that the 8th Army had been destroyed, it was not strange for the vast star continent to massacre the Shang continent to vent their anger. Just thinking about managing a territory gave him a headache, and the thing he was least afraid of was war. Tang Tian was very unhappy with Shizhen's stare, and he forcefully repeated the fact that he had no money. "You people are so annoying." The young man has long been annoyed with the matter of making money, okay? After thinking for a long time, he still had no clue. He was already annoyed enough. Hey, what do you mean by that expression? That dull face? Is he mocking me for being poor? The 36th Army was originally a weak army, the standards of the soldiers were low, and when Xianxia was in charge in the past, his daily training was rather tight, but after Sun Jing made him a mere figurehead, the entire army became rotten. Their will to fight was very weak, and with Sun Zheng and Xianxia's appearance, these fellows all surrendered. Bing decided to find Crazy Tang to discuss the next step of the plan. Just as he walked out of the room, he heard Crazy Tang's roar. When Xianxia heard this, he almost vomited blood. He stared at Tang Tian in a daze, thinking that he had heard wrongly. But he never thought that the master would actually say that he had no money. It is extremely valuable. Xianxia replied with certainty. He patted Xianxia's shoulder and consoled him with sincere and heartfelt words. Don't be discouraged, we are still in the initial stage, although we are poor now, everything will get better in the future. The group of people scattered like birds. Calm down, I have to calm down. No money. He felt that his suggestion was in the bag. The current underworld continent's demonic mounts in the market were hard to differentiate, and their reputation was bad, causing their prices to shrink. To a tyrant like Master Meng Nan, this bit of expenditure was not even comparable to the equipment on their bodies. I have no money. I told you I have no money. Tang Tian was furious. This group of people was so annoying. It was too cruel. Since war was unavoidable, then he had to think of ways to increase his own strength. He was extremely confident in Master Meng Nan, because he understood the power of money. Tang Tian's fingers grabbed randomly in the air, he stared with his mouth wide open, he felt that he was going crazy. Definitely. Xianxia was determined. In truth, he was not surprised. The master had built the Black Castle here, and that was already a clue. Xianxia's expression was uglier than crying. The origin mark box that contained law fragments was a box. The Empyrean ice tree spear that was the strongest weapon of the blue dwarves was a bundle. Master Meng Nan's wealth was so immense that even the vast star continent, which was known for its commerce, could not contend against him. But wasn't the savage continent known for its backwardness? Seems like the rumors were not to be trusted. He was also a man who was never satisfied, and his current situation was much better than before. Evening Snow Ocean, Black Wind Blade, Winged Armor, Origin Mark Box, Fake Empyrean Ice Tree Spear, etc., all of these were things that he did not even dare to think about in the past. He had already begun to expand his army. He swept a glance at the 36th Army, and only took 2 people and left. The 2 of them were recommended by Xianxia. Their standards were not bad, they were honest and upright, and Sun Jing did not like them, but after Bing inspected them, they were truly capable. I will definitely train to death. You said that thing is worth a lot of money? Tang Tian suddenly asked. Sun Zhang and the rest surrender made the following battles extremely easy. Whatever master says is true. An honest man with a stubborn heart, Xianxia was completely confused. No money? Does that word have anything to do with you, master? How can you say that word out of master's mouth? Master, are you really not joking? Why do you look so innocent and angry? The Empyrean Ice Tree Spear is such a valuable weapon. For master to be able to take out a bundle of them, it is impossible that you do not have money. Xianxia gave out sufficient evidence. If he could replenish some of the underworld continent's demonic mounts, adding the luxurious equipment, Xianxia was extremely confident in the upcoming battle. Weak army strength? No problem, the weak army had their own ways of fighting. No one was clearer than him about the ways of fighting a war, as it was something he was most proficient in. The bundle of Empyrean Ice Tree Spears had shocked Xianxia, and he spent the entire night digesting it. He thought that he would not lose his composure like yesterday, but the reality was actually so cruel. On the other hand, the precious Bright Village Regiment, although the strength of the members were ordinary, but they trained diligently, and their attitude was rather proper. In this battle, the underworld continent's demonic mounts that he led were in the limelight. But very quickly, he calmed down from the joy of victory. Sun Jie's death and the destruction of the 8th Army would cause a huge uproar in the vast star continent, and he was very clear. Tang Tian clenched his teeth. How do you want me to prove that I do not have money? Tang Tian looked at Xianxia with a face of disbelief. Are you sure that they are truly valuable? His suggestion was rejected by Master without hesitation. Bundles of Empyrean ice tree branches that were half the height of a human piled up into a small hill. Tang Tian's heart was filled with understanding. Every time a tycoon's dreams were shattered, it would be like that. But in his eyes, the training plan was truly amateurish, although Wang Xian was diligent, but his standard was truly lacking. Alright, he was diligent enough, and was in charge of training. If he had to personally do the simple and boring daily training, Bing felt that he would definitely go crazy. Furthermore, the trust that the Lord had in them was the most precious thing. The Empyrean ice tree spears, in Shirsen's eyes, were simply divine weapons. Such a divine weapon, for one to appear, was already very rare, for a bundle to appear. For a few bundles. The scene in front of him was extremely unreal, to the point that Shirsen felt that his own dreams would definitely not appear in front of him. He thought about it. The problem of money was truly something that needed to be solved. He walked in front of Shirsen and said, "Why not? You bring a few things to sell and see what sells well. For example, the Black Wind Blade. We have a lot of these things. You guys are experienced, your numbers are small, your targets are small, you guys are nimble, you guys can be the front line. Running around for business. Originally you guys should not be doing it, but now that you have the manpower, I can only let you guys down. But you have to be fast. The vast star continent will react very quickly." I knew it. How could this thing be valuable? From the start, Tang Tian did not believe that this thing would be valuable. The sea of light, the Empyrean ice tree branches were densely packed. It was so lush that it made people's hair stand on end. It would be weird if it was valuable. Everyone in the red grass planet understood this point. Some of them chose to escape, while others decided to stay, and were placed in the Black Castle. Luckily, the Black Castle was built to be big, and was just enough to accommodate all of them. That was the only good thing about it. Shirsen felt that he had made a mistake. This thing was not an Empyrean ice tree spear. It just looked like it. That was the only logical thing. Do you want to fight? That's enough. This is life, uncle. Tang Tian sighed, and left contentedly. The strength of the vast star continent was something that the Shang continent was unable to contend against. Shirsen nodded his head, and said resolutely, "Once the samples are prepared, we will immediately set off." He silently cursed in his heart. What kind of moral conduct is this? Bing, who came out and saw the scene, was also filled with sympathy for Senator Bing was also helpless. He realized that when he spoke to them nicely, they would have a face of fear and unease, and instead scolded them, which made them look like they were enjoying it. Different from the rest who were filled with worry, Bing, the old fox of the army, was extremely excited. From today onwards, all other training content will be cancelled, and only train on one, synchronization. I only want synchronization, and 50% is the lowest standard. From today onwards, train to your death. Bang bang bang. If the Empyrean ice tree spear was truly valuable, then the problem of money would be solved, and they could directly sell the tree branches. In Tang Tian's heart, the bundles of tree branches were no different from firewood. He had initially advised the master to leave the Shang continent, and to temporarily avoid the danger was the wisest choice. The vast star continent was strong, but even in the southern region, there were a few continents that were not weaker than them. Shirsen took a deep breath, and said sincerely, "Master, if you have anything against me, please say it. Please do not use such words to fool this subordinate. It is truly too hurtful." Chapter 592. In the end, the person who traveled with Shirsen was Tang Tian, but the problem was in choosing the samples. When choosing the samples, Bing was dumbstruck. The things on Tang Tian's body were piled up like a mountain, and there were many different types. All of them were strange. What should I choose? He asked Shirsen, but Shirsen had a look of helplessness. Shirsen had never seen these things before, much less appraised their value. With the Black Castle as the center, 12 tall towers extended outwards, and using the Treasure City's technology, they shared and sorted out the energy, forming a gigantic stronghold. Crazy Tang was so angry that he cried out, He was extremely dissatisfied with his training plan being interrupted. "But Bings, you're the boss. If you don't think of something, who will?" made Tang Tian swallow his words. Without hesitation, he started to push forward the Sword Forest Stronghold plan, as he had sufficient manpower. But at the same time, Shenrong and Xian, the two old men of the 36 armies, finally calculated the budget for the upcoming war. Even if the manpower and fighting strength were free, but the expenditure on food, medicine, training necessities, etc., was still as high as 120 million cloud coins. The light belt had a diameter of about 500 m, formed by extremely fine flowing light, like a flowing river of light. The other end extended deep into the sky. The rest understood, and the entire group spread out, like a huge bird spreading its wings. The scouts on the two wings would occasionally rush forward and scan the surroundings. "What else is there?" Tang Tian blurted out. "Danger," Shursen explained. "There are some chaotic energy flows that are as large as stars. If you do not fly close, you will be swallowed by them. Those are still fine, as they are easier to discover, but the most terrifying ones are some special chaotic energy flows. These chaotic energy flows are extremely dangerous, but they are concealed, and mixed in with other chaotic flows, it is not easy to detect. If you were to bump into them, you can only blame it on your bad luck." When the entire void was filled with such chaotic flows, the scene was magnificent, causing Tang Tian to be completely stunned. After a long while, he regained his senses and praised, "So magnificent." Recovering his body after a battle was a huge expenditure. "Yes." Shursen nodded his head. "That is why it is best to ride on a boat. The defense of a boat is better and safer. Even a merchant ship is much safer. Nowadays, there are very few people who can fly across the sea. There is a certain degree of danger." Tang Tian was having a lot of fun. Having just comprehended resilience, he was extremely fascinated by this technique. He tried out different forces and variations. The boring journey had become his training. Persevering in training, there would always be results. Tang Tian's dry pull, the explosive sound was much smaller than before. Bing judged that the vast star continent's movements would not be so fast. The vast star continent situation was delicate, and with Sun Jie's destruction, it made others not dare to underestimate their strength and would be suspicious of their background. After entering the light belt, Shursen immediately reminded, "Sir, fly upwards." What was this phenomenon? The corrosive energy seemed to be pushed 3 feet away from Tang Tian's body by an invisible force, unable to advance any further. A blank space formed around Tang Tian. "Let's go, this road is not short." Shursen reminded and took the lead. "Is this the estuary?" Tang Tian was completely captivated by the light belt in front of him, and was filled with curiosity. At the moment, the energy around them had become extremely dense, and the light aura of the light belt had become somewhat dazzling. Shursen and the rest all activated their energy barriers, and when their gazes landed on Tang Tian, they were immediately stunned by the scene around Tang Tian. "Rise? Estuary? What is that?" Tang Tian was startled. But not long after, Tang Tian regained his vigor. "Star door." Shursen tried it out and roughly understood what it meant. He shook his head. "The southern region does not have star doors. This subordinate has never heard of one. Where can there be one? Could it be a new technique developed by the savage continent?" They were of different colors and were very colorful. Shursen was relatively calm. He was too lazy to think about it, because he realized that no matter how he thought, he could not understand. In the past, he had to make the decisions for the entire group, and felt that it was extremely tiring, but now, he only needed to listen to orders, and did not need to think about it. Compared to Tang Tian's vast and powerful aura, Shursen's underworld continent's demonic mounts were extremely quiet, like a group of black bats quietly flying across the sky. The underworld continent's demonic mounts' outstanding individual strength and tactical discipline were displayed without a doubt. No one was talking to them, and they maintained an oppressive silence. "We need to buy a ship in the future," Tang Tian said resolutely. He suddenly thought of a question, and asked curiously, "If we return, how do we find Red Grass Planet?" Before Tang Tian could reply, a light belt entered his vision, causing Tang Tian to be startled. Sea of energy? Don't tell me you are not a star door? Tang Tian was surprised. At that time, Red Grass Planet would become an unbreakable stronghold planet. 25 kilometers in the air, Tang Tian had never tried to fly so high before. In the past, he could only fly above the clouds. Hearing that, Tang Tian was dumbstruck. Isn't that impossible to guard against? Shursen and the rest who were experienced and knowledgeable, upon seeing that, they could not help but be stunned. This period of buffer time was extremely important to the Shang continent, as he had more important things to do. I have never heard of it before. Let's go, let's go. Tang Tian could not wait any longer. What made him happy was that there was air in the void. Bing wanted to find Crane to give him advice, but seeing that Crane was training fervently, he did not have the heart to disturb him. Ling Su and Jing Hao were also training fervently. Everyone had been stimulated by the previous failure. After flying for a long time, Shursen suddenly said, "Master, we need to ascend in front, to the estuary." Continuously climbing to a height of 25 kilometers, even for Tang Tian, who was a monster with physical strength, he felt that it was unbearable. Shursen and the rest were not any better. All of their faces revealed signs of fatigue. The energy required to ascend vertically was many times that of flying normally. He did not care about Master Meng Nan's background. As long as there was air, his dry pull would be useful. The lack of money had become the most important problem. Tang Tian finally understood what Shursen meant by the sea of energy. Pa pa pa. Tang Tian stepped on the air shield, shouting as he rushed forward, leaving behind a series of explosions in the air. All right, who asked me to be the boss? Tang Tian hung his head dejectedly and followed Shursenator. Hearing that, a look of excitement flashed past Shursen's eyes. He had always desired to own a warship, but no matter how small a warship was, it was not something he could afford. Every time they flew out of the sea of energy, their bodies would be corroded by it. If the corrosion was not handled well, it would easily become a hidden injury that was hard to recover from. Warship. Tang Tian was once again attracted by another new term. The sea map and the energy pole needle. Shursen continued, "Later on, when we fly out, Master will realize that the estuary is very obvious. The Red Grass Planet's estuary is not considered big, but as long as we enter a range of 25 kilometers, it will be easy to find." Bing quickly thought of a way to settle things once and for all. He might as well send Tang Tian along with Shursen, and threw a sentence to Crazy Tang, and then left irresponsibly. Shursen explained, "Once we leave the estuary, we will reach the Sea of Energy. The Sea of Energy is a boundless and boundless energy, and contains many impurities, which has a strong corrosive effect, and without strength, you will not be able to go out to sea. If the distance is too far, then you will have to take a boat, and these boats will have strong martial artists that will take turns to block the corrosion. Warships are specially used to fight across the sea, and are very powerful. Some warships can hold an entire army, and can greatly increase the strength of an army." Hearing that, Shursen knew that Master Meng Nan had never been to the Sea of Energy before, and reminded him, "It is not only spectacular." The group of them headed deeper into the Sea of Energy. "So powerful." Tang Tian's eyes lit up. "We will have money to buy warships." Shursen was surprised. Master did not even know about the estuary? Could the savage continent be different from the southern region? He explained, "We need to ascend to a height of 25 kilometers, pass through the estuary, and enter the Sea of Energy." Bing tried to deduce it a few times, and realized that to break through such a stronghold, the price needed to be paid was extremely high. According to Sai Lei's calculations, if the stronghold was completed, they would be able to control a quarter of the energy in the entire Red Grass Planet, and that was enough for them to hold the advantage. Sai Lei named the stronghold as Sword Forest Stronghold, and calculated that if the number of pagoda strongholds reached 36, due to the overlapping effects, they would be able to control the energy in the entire Red Grass Planet. Whoosh! Tang Tian felt as though he had broken through an invisible barrier. Suddenly, the dazzling light aura dimmed, and his vision became clear again. The space in front of him was filled with an endless chaotic flow of energy. It was extremely dense. All of these chaotic energy flows did not have any pattern. Some formed whirlpools, some swam like a school of fish, some dragged long light tails like shooting stars, some formed light spots, floating indefinitely. Good. Tang Tian was eager to give it a try. Stepping on the air shield, he pulled out bit by bit. His speed was extremely fast, and in a moment, he left everyone behind. The advantage of pulling out horizontally was far less than the advantage of pulling out vertically. Alang and the rest were even more respectful. The current day's martial techniques were all monopolized by the big families. They had never seen Master Meng Nan's technique before, but it was definitely not ordinary. Shirsen looked at it, then retracted his gaze. He looked at his members and bellowed, "Maintain the formation, be careful." Through Wang and Xian, the other two planets of the Shang continent had already started to evacuate their citizens, and those who were not willing to leave the Shang continent brought their families to the Black Stronghold. Although it was only a part of the Shang continent, but the population of the Black Stronghold quickly reached 60,000. The Black Stronghold was unable to accommodate such a large population, and with Sai Lei's help, the concept of a stronghold was brought up. Bing could only find a local merchant through Wang and Xian, but the merchant shook his head. He had never seen it before, so how would he dare to give a price? The higher they flew, the thicker the light belt became. It was as though they were flying up a large pipe. As a famous general, when Bing saw Sai Lei's plan, he sucked in a breath of cold air. Shirsen then knew that the master had never seen the estuary before. He looked at the light belt and sighed. Luckily the estuary is too small, and the warships are unable to enter. If not, we would truly be in trouble. Seems like master rarely goes out. Chapter 593. Outside the tent, the energy turbulence crashed into the tent, but the tent did not move at all. Without the corrosion of the chaotic energy flow, everyone could finally relax. Everyone began to repair their own bodies. Tang Tian didn't need to repair himself, but he was exhausted. In 3 more days, I will reach the White Sands continent. At that time, I will definitely take a good look around. Qin Yu Ran stretched her waist. Her voluptuous body was like a blossoming flower. Adding on her lazy expression, she was extremely flirtatious. This was called the spherical chain tent. With the silver ball as the fulcrum, the tent was formed by an energy curtain. Shirsen noticed the worry on Tang Tian's face and couldn't help but ask, "Sir, do you have any worries?" They would rest here for 10 hours before setting off again. Without the ball chain tent, there was no rest in the sea of energy, only death awaited them. Tang Tian was drooling. Previously, he had no idea what a warship was. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he knew how powerful a warship was. A battleship was traveling quickly in the sea of energy. The few of them injected their energy into the metal spheres at the same time, and the metal spheres lit up with silver light at the same time. Silver light beams shot out from the silver spheres at the same time. The light beams connected with each other, and the connected light beams formed a frame. Then, a light screen lit up on the surface of the frame. Curtains of light rose one after another, forming a complete enclosed space. Everyone sat on the ground and consciously maintained a defensive formation. Tang Tian was protected in the middle. The underworld continent's demonic mounts seized the time to recover their strength, and the surroundings became quiet. Seeing that Shirsen and the others had a good attitude, the manager's expression became much better. "If you need anything, you can come to me directly. I'm in room 13 in front." A steward brought them to a cabin, and after settling them down, he said, "There's only the cargo hold left, so you'll have to bear with it for now. Please do not wander about. 3 days later, we will reach the White Sands continent." The rarity of gold saints in Heaven's Road, and whether or not there were any left, no one knew. However, such battleships were not rare in the sanctuary. Suddenly, someone barged in and reported, "Miss, there's a spherical chain tent ahead. The other party wishes to board the boat." The enclosed ball chain tent was a quiet haven. The howling of the chaotic energy flow outside disappeared. No one spoke. Rest time was precious. The longer the ball chain tent lasted, the more it consumed. If the energy in the silver ball was used up, the tent would disappear. Soon, a voice was heard. "Master, please board the ship." "Thank you, noble lord." Xianxia expressed his gratitude. They quickly put away the spherical chain tent and floated towards the warship. "I'm not afraid of bandits." Xianxia waved her snow-white fists, her face filled with excitement. "It would be best if they are bandits. That way Xiaobai can beat them until they piss in their pants." "I can't say for sure. This depends on luck. Some people are worried about safety, while others find it troublesome. However, this is a battleship, so the guards are probably very strong. The other party definitely isn't afraid of us being bandits." Xianxia shook his head. He turned to the others and said, "Everyone, put away all your unsightly things. Tell me everything you know." Tang Tian didn't care too much. For example, the main forces. It doesn't matter if it's not too detailed. "All right." Xianxia quickly agreed. "Please represent us to express our gratitude to the noble lord again." Apart from that, he also borrowed the power of the laws. "No way." Auntie Chiu stared at Xianxia. "This performance is the most important performance of the year. In the various continents of the southern region, more than half of the aristocratic families will be here. If there are any slip-ups in the performance, it will be a huge blow to young Miss Reputation. The selection is about to begin, and at this time, your reputation is the most important. You cannot be careless." It was the first time Tang Tian had seen such a thick energy barrier. It was at least 10 m thick, causing Tang Tian to be speechless. A person in front of such a battleship was insignificant. Is this the legendary Gold Saint? Inside the ball chain tent, Tang Tian had a look of curiosity. Will they agree to let us board the ship? "Young miss, we still need to rehearse." The middle-aged lady by the side immediately reminded him. She was surnamed Chiu, and everyone called her Auntie Chiu. She was also Xianxu's manager. The rest signaled for them to get ready. It was a gigantic object that was over 200 m tall and a mobile stronghold, causing Tang Tian's heart to palpitate. The Sacred Saint Galaxy truly has its own unique points. To actually be able to create such a terrifying big fellow, an energy barrier that was more than 10 m thick, it left a deep impression on Tang Tian. He could not imagine what kind of attack was able to pierce through such a thick energy barrier. Inside the ball chain tent, everyone felt the pressure on them lessen and sat down. "Merchants?" Bai Xiao did not deny it, and spoke to Xianxia and Auntie Chiu. "They don't look like bandits." Auntie Chiu muttered, "Since they don't look like bandits, then let them board, it will be convenient, and form good karma." Xianxia and Auntie Chiu turned to look at Bai Xiao, who nodded his head. "Send the images over." "How much does such a battleship cost?" Tang Tian suddenly asked. Xianxia and the rest were already used to it, and no one complained about being tired. Xianxia was surprised. He did not expect Tang Tian to throw out such a huge question, and replied cautiously, "This subordinate does not know much." His tone was calm, but filled with confidence. "Honorable Martial Continent." Those 3 words immediately caused the hair on Tang Tian's body to stand. He exclaimed out loud, his eyes suddenly flashing with a cold glint. Auntie Chiu scolded, "How can a girl speak such vulgarities?" His gaze sized up the gigantic battleship. The battleship was over 200 m long, and was made up of 10 m long red wooden planks that were pieced together. Xianxia said that it was a type of wood called red blood wood, which was extremely valuable and had outstanding defense. There were pavilions and buildings on the battleship, with figures moving about. The entire battleship was enveloped by a layer of thick energy barrier. Xianxia looked around. There were no dangerous energy flows around, and it was a good place to set up camp. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief, and then spread out, with each of them holding a silver metal ball. Xianxia retracted her head and stuck out her tongue. In many matters, Tang Tian was muddle-headed, but when it came to battles, Tang Tian's beast-like sharp intuition would reveal itself. He was extremely sensitive to energy, and could clearly sense that the energy in the entire battleship was one, and he did not dare imagine that when the battleship roared, it would erupt with a terrifying might. Tang Tian thought for a long time, and felt that there were only two methods. Not everyone could rest. The 5 underworld continents' demonic mounts sat at 5 different corners. The silver balls behind them were connected to an extremely fine light thread, and at the other end of the light thread, there were a few flat light bladders, swaying along with the chaotic energy flow. These light bladders were extremely sensitive and were used to detect the dangerous and hidden chaotic energy flows in the sea of energy. The first method was to use an even more powerful and concentrated energy to attack. Tang Tian guessed that the battleship definitely had a similar method of attack. The energy barrier of the battleship suddenly revealed a 3 m wide circular passage, and Sen led the way in. Upon boarding the battleship, Tang Tian could truly feel the majesty of the battleship. His face was filled with shock. Heaven's Road had never seen such a huge battle mechanism before. Qin Yu Ran pouted, her eyes drooped, like a frosted eggplant. Advancing in the sea of energy was extremely difficult. His body rejected the energy. That meant that the sea of energy was also rejecting his body, and the resistance he faced was much greater than the rest. Every step was extremely difficult, and his physical strength was being consumed quickly. "Thank you," Qin Yu Ran said pitifully, "just one rehearsal should be enough." Sen laughed bitterly. "I don't know, it is this subordinate's first time riding on such a high-grade battleship. It will definitely be a sky-high price." This was a stronghold that could move. Tang Tian laughed bitterly. The feeling of stepping on solid ground was extremely wonderful. Everyone sat down. The cabin that was arranged for them was the cargo hold. There were no beds or tables, but everyone was satisfied. The energy inside the battleship was abundant, and they did not need to constantly defend against the chaotic energy flow. The power of laws was a higher level of power, and in theory, no matter how much energy was used to form an energy barrier, it would be unable to block the power of laws. But Tang Tian was very clear that in order to break open such a thick energy barrier, one's comprehension of the laws would probably have to reach an extremely shocking level. "They say they are merchants and are heading towards the White Sands continent," his subordinate immediately said. His entire body was drenched in sweat. Tang Tian sat down and gasped for breath. His improvement was obvious. After continuously moving forward, his physical strength had been tempered. "Activate." "Yes." Bai Xiao laughed. "Aunt Xiu, relax, I will keep an eye on them." "So it's like that." Sen somewhat understood, thinking about the master's lack of common sense. It seemed like the master had never left the house before. He thought for a moment and said, "Then this subordinate will casually say it. The sacred Saint Galaxy is divided into north, south, east, and west, and we are currently in the southern region, which is the most flourishing and has the strongest commerce. The southern region has many strong people, and no one is especially strong, but the southern region's business atmosphere is good, and there are fewer battles between them. Master's hometown, the Savage Continent, is in the northern region, and is the biggest powerhouse in the northern region. The Savage Continent is just a general name. There are many continents below it, and they seem to be fighting amongst themselves, which Master might know better. The strongest in the eastern region is the Gold Continent. They specialize in mechanisms, and the entire eastern region is influenced by them, where mechanisms are prevalent. And the strongest in the western region is the Honorable Martial Continent. Stronghold. A light screen lit up on the wall, and a spherical chain tent appeared on the light screen. Bai Xiao looked at it carefully, and was surprised. That is a very standard military practice. Where did they come from?" Bai Xiao laughed out loud. A look of admiration flashed past Bai Xiao's eyes, and he laughed. "The White Sands continent is the southern region's business center. To walk around it once, young miss will need some time." The most famous business street there is called the White Sands Lower Street. It is a first-class flourishing place, and is one of the 16 golden streets of the sacred Saint Galaxy. That's it. The situation in the sacred Saint Galaxy? Get ready. Ah Ling shouted. Qin Yu Ran was excited. Wah, I want to go. It is a little troublesome. Tang Tian scratched his head, feeling helpless. He suddenly said, Old Shi, tell me about the situation in the sacred Saint Galaxy. Everyone took off their armor and kept their black wind blades. Chapter 594. Pirates. Shursen noticed Tang Tian's glance and said calmly, "The pirates in the Sea of Energy have always been active. The chaotic energy flow gives them the best cover. I'm afraid the size of this pirate fleet isn't small. They have at least 10 warships and 1 warship." Tang Tian nodded and didn't say anything else. "Tell everyone to keep their spirits up," Lien Bo-jun said solemnly, his eyes flickering with a cold glint. "Young Master Bai Xiao is not someone that can be easily dealt with." The underworld continent's demonic mounts familiarly found their own battle positions, although they had never boarded such a high-grade warship before, but they were proficient in ordinary warships. The entire battlefield was shrouded in a tidal wave of whooshing sounds. All other sounds were completely suppressed. The cannonball of energy couldn't even cross half the field. "Sir, please take a seat." Shursen guided Tang Tian. "The handle on the chair is a mechanism. My lord does not need to input energy, you only need to control the direction. My lord, you must be careful not to activate too much energy, otherwise it will overload your body." Boom boom boom. Shio shio shio. A large swarm of sword auras, a swarm of hornets, pounced towards the ball of light. Seeing that Tang Tian was deep in thought, Shursen did not disturb him. He closed his eyes to recover his strength. On the Black Dragon warship, the deputy suddenly held his head with both hands and exclaimed in disbelief, "My God! What's that?" Lien Bo-jun did not even turn his head and said, "Don't think about it, I am prepared to exchange her for money." Sure enough, there was a knot. Shursen confirmed his conjecture and did not make a fuss. Who didn't have a few enemies these days? But the enemy is the honorable martial continent, that is truly something. After sighing for a while, Shursen was a little expectant. Could it be that Sir was going to the western region in the future? Shursen and all of the underworld continent's demonic mounts were dumbstruck. It was the first time they had seen someone use the honeycomb sword cannon to the point of self-destruction. Their bombardment was actually suppressed. Shursen's reaction was the fastest. Without saying a word, he pulled one of his brothers down from his seat and pushed Tang Tian forward. "Sir, try this." "That doesn't sound very good," Tang Tian muttered. Even the light of the chaotic energy flow couldn't cover the light of the simultaneous bombardment from more than 10 warships. The shockingly powerful energy cannons drew beautiful arcs of light. Like raindrops, they bombarded the warship. When he was designing the honeycomb sword cannon, he had never thought that there would be a day where it would be able to withstand such a surging amount of energy. Tang Tian's body trembled, the surging energy instantly filled up the honeycomb sword cannon, and the overjoyed Tang Tian fired again without hesitation. Inside the Bloodwood warship, Bai Xiao stood up, his handsome and refined face had a warm smile. He turned and looked at the panicking Qin Yu Ran. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." The honeycomb sword cannon that had exceeded its limits was blown to pieces. Lien Bo-jun was roused. Bai Xiao had made his move. Suddenly, the ship trembled violently, and a sharp and ear-piercing alarm rang out. Among the dozen battleships, a black battleship was the most eye-catching. It was more than a kilometer long, making it look like a black beast king. Clusters of dazzling energy rose from it like raindrops and pounced toward the lone red battleship on the other side. The surging energy from the warship continuously poured into the sword on Tang Tian's back, causing the sword blade to light up with a dazzling light aura, releasing a buzzing sound. Tang Tian anxiously jumped onto the seat and held onto the handle. The timing was even more coincidental. Tang Tian did not have the time to sigh. He suddenly realized that a dazzling light regiment was flying towards him at an astonishing speed. The intense explosion caused the hull of the warship to tilt and sway continuously, causing the goods in the cargo hold to fall from the containers and scatter all over the floor, causing the dim lights in the cargo hold to flicker. "This subordinate only knows that much," Shursen said. He looked at his master who had a gloomy expression, and muttered in his heart, "Seems like the hatred is not small." Thus he added, "Master, if you are interested in the honorable martial continent, we can go to the White Sands continent, and Master can purchase some information about the honorable martial continent, which will be more detailed." Everyone is interested in the rise of the honorable martial continent, and many people are doing research on it. Shursen did not expect that. He had finally boarded a warship and thought that his journey would be smooth, but he did not expect to meet with pirates. He looked calm on the surface, but his heart was filled with worry. In such a large-scale battle, a single person's strength would not be of much use. This excited and eager fellow. Doesn't Master know that the situation is dangerous? In the captain's room of the warship, Lien Bo-jun observed the battlefield. The opponent's warship was swaying under the rain of fire, and the prey was unable to escape from his grasp. The Honorable Martial Continent was actually the overlord of the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and that was not good news for them. The overlord of the Sacred Saint Galaxy definitely had many armies and warships. Hearing that, Tang Tian knew that the Honorable Martial Continent was the target he was looking for. Lien Bo-jun's tone did not have any fluctuations. Bai Xiao has not fought yet. Shursen perspired in cold sweat. Master is actually so warlike. The godlike young lad is not that kind of person. The inside of the warship was in chaos. Bang. Pay. He turned his head and followed his assistant's gaze and was startled. Although it was not as direct as usual, but the scene in front of him still caused Tang Tian's blood to boil. Tang Tian, who had succeeded in his attack, was completely excited. He had completely entered a berserk state. He roared and roared while frantically activating the honeycomb sword cannon. The scalp-numbing sound of the cannon continued like a torrential rain. Tang Tian realized that the protective barrier in front of him had become transparent, allowing him to see the battlefield outside even more clearly. The dazzling light bullets exploded into flames. It was a spectacular sight. It truly is not good. Shursen was experienced. Unless the warship has an entire army, from the frequency of the cannons, the warship's defense is not strong enough. He looked at the master and stopped in his tracks. Pervert. It was Shursen's first time boarding the Bloodwood warship, and he did not know the positions of the weapons on board. Luckily for them, they were lucky enough to meet the manager who had brought them on board, and upon hearing that they were willing to help, the manager immediately brought them to a battle zone. Tang Tian spat out the metal fragments in his mouth and rushed out from the smoke and scolded, "Who made the cannon? So useless." "But how can I help?" Tang Tian was somewhat anxious. He planned to bring the master and escape the moment the situation turned bad. To escape in such a situation, there was nothing to be ashamed of. The sword auras pulled out a continuous light scar in the air. Shursen, who was beside Tang Tian, was completely dumbstruck. He had never seen anyone who could activate the honeycomb sword cannon like that. The energy load could not be seen on the master's body. The light auras from the explosions would occasionally break the darkness. Lien Bo-jun stared blankly at the frantically spewing sword auras. He was stunned. How many honeycomb sword cannons did they install? Tang Tian curiously sized up the weapons in front of him. Around a seat, there were many densely packed swords floating. The number of swords was astonishing. There were at least 100 of them, and they were like a school of fish, gathering and scattering, floating slowly. To him, the energy load did not affect him at all. The surging energy was like a tide that flowed endlessly into the honeycomb sword cannon. The sword auras that flew out from his back did not stop at all. They were endless. One after another, dazzling sword auras flew out from his back at an astonishing speed. When the sword auras flew out of the light screen, the sword auras were over 1.5 m long. Suddenly, the honeycomb sword cannon in front of him exploded into pieces, the smoke enveloping Tang Tian's figure. Shursen was shocked. "Master!" Lien Bo-jun was familiar with the spewing light aura. It was the attack of the honeycomb sword cannon. He was extremely familiar with the weapon. It was easy to control. The frequency of the attack was high, and the speed of the sword auras was astonishing. It was an outstanding weapon, but it had a flaw. It placed a huge burden on the gunner, and after every round of attack, the gunner had to rest for more than 10 seconds. Xiao. Bai Xiao walked out. Bai Xiao alone is unable to turn the situation around. The adjutant was unsure. "We've struck it big this time." His adjutant was extremely excited. A Bloodwood warship, and Qin Yu ran. I heard that Qin Yu Ran's beauty is unparalleled, boss. Tang Tian was truly excited. He had never experienced a warship battle before. The dazzling light auras, the deafening explosions, made all the battles that Tang Tian had participated in seem weak. Sensing his fighting intent, the honeycomb sword cannon behind him became even more dazzling. Xianxia said, "I'll leave this honeycomb sword cannon to master." A few of the warships that were nearer were struck by the light auras, with splinters flying everywhere, and they retreated in panic. The cargo hold was quiet. Under the dim lights, the underworld continent's demonic mounts were like statues. Tang Tian laid on the ground without a care for his image, relaxing his body, but his mind could not stop. The light swords continued to strike the energy regiment, causing the surface of the energy regiment to form ripples, and after enduring over 10 of the swords, it exploded into a regiment of flames. As for artificially nurturing spirits, the sacred Saint Galaxy did not have any martial spirits. The high-energy environment caused the corrosive effect of the energy, and there was no space for spirits to survive. If there was the Temple and the Honorable Martial Alliance, then Tang Tian would not be surprised. The armies of the Ursa Major constellation and the armies of the Sacred Saint Galaxy were on completely different levels. Although to Tang Tian, among the same level saints, the Sacred Saint Galaxy was not as strong as Heaven's Road. But a saint was still a saint, and was not something ordinary martial techniques could compare to. He coughed lightly and arranged his thoughts. The Honorable Martial Continent is the strongest continent in the Western region, and they are the new overlords that have risen in the past few hundred years. Especially their martial techniques, they are currently unique, they are extremely meticulous, and have the form of light attribute martial techniques. But what truly allowed them to rise is their research on spirits, and in this aspect, they are ahead of everyone else. They have found a way to artificially nurture spirits, and have integrated it into their martial techniques. Although they have not risen for long, but everyone thinks highly of them, and in the past few years, they have already shown signs of unifying the Western region. The long swords floating around him lit up all at once and pointed straight ahead. The battlefield was not big, but it could completely accommodate Tang Tian and the rest. Without Xianxia's orders, the underworld continent's demonic mounts all stood up, their faces revealing cautious looks. "How is the Honorable Martial Continent?" Tang Tian asked. The meticulous martial techniques, artificially nurturing spirits, and the time of their rise, all of them matched. As the Sacred Saint Galaxy was filled with energy, they did not need to focus too much on the utilization of energy, and thus allowed the Sacred Saint Galaxy's martial techniques to have a wide and open style. In one of the Bloodwood warships, there were sword auras shooting out crazily. The astonishing number of sword auras whistled like a storm. There were too many of them, to the point that they formed a large screen of swords, frantically sweeping across the battlefield. The energy regiments that were over 3 m in diameter smashed onto the thick energy barrier of the warship, causing dazzling light auras to blossom out from the energy barrier. The piercing white light spots seemed to have enveloped the entire warship. An intense sense of danger enveloped his entire body. Tang Tian was like an exploding rabbit, all of his hairs standing on end. Without thinking, his eyes locked onto the light regiments. "That is truly a pity." The adjutant smacked his lips. His face was filled with regret, but he quickly threw the problem to the back of his mind, and became even more excited. "If it's ransom, we can at least exchange for 2 more Bloodwood warships." Wah wah wah, 1 Black Dragon warship, 3 Bloodwood warships, 10 warships, we will rule the pirate world. Tang Tian's reaction surprised Xianxia. Could it be that Master Meng Nen has a grudge with the Honorable Martial Continent? "Let's go help them." Tang Tian said decisively. They had boarded someone else's ship and received someone else's favor. How could they run away upon encountering danger? What a huge scene. Buzz. His voice seemed to have a calming demonic power, causing the fear in Qin Yu Ran's heart to decrease greatly. That was the word that popped up in everyone's mind. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.